So, this is the first Google Hangout for World Socionics Society in a while. I'm deciding to start this by waiting for people to arrive. I want to see who arrives first. So, got a little bit of a wait to begin. Oh, hello? 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 Hey Al, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I decided to, I'm starting the Hangout, so we're live now. I'm just watching people like organically pop up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, that's not. Hello, Max. Hello. People aren't very talkative today, are they? These are the people watching. I would advise for people watching, because there are going to be limited spaces here, it might be best for people just watching and not speaking to just simply watch the Hangout. So that can be done by going to the event and watching it live, as opposed to taking up space for people who actually want to speak.
Right.
My big idea. Oh, there's some people here who I don't recognize. Let's see, who's this? New Unlimited. Hello, New Unlimited.
Hello.
How come I don't recognize you? Have you been lurking at World Socionics Society for a very, very long time without posting?
I haven't actually looked much into the socionics, but I've looked into a lot of the other a lot of the other typing systems.
I see. So you're primarily maybe on here to see as a sort of introduction?
Yeah.
I see. I see Scott's there. Hey Scott, how you doing?
Hello. Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, that's not true. I'm not good. I've got a cold. Got a horrible cold because I walked for 50 minutes and back in the snow today. It's not today, the other day.
Snow? Where are
It's been
you,
just enough time for the germs to just stay within me. Yeah, it's been snowing in the UK.
That's unusual, isn't it?
At the moment.
Is that unusual for snow in the UK?
Oh no, it's not unusual for snow. Snow happens in the winter. Winter is snowy season. It doesn't happen particularly often in the south, but in the north it snows rather regularly, I hear. Oh, Martin's here. Hey, Martin. No. So yes, I'm seeing if anyone else is going to pop up, or whether we should start talking. I actually decided not to have a particular topic in mind, because I wanted to see what people here would come up with. Hey Martin.
Hey.
How you doing?
Not too bad.
Alon. Hey Alon.
Hey.
What's new with you?
Not much, just hanging out.
It's good to hear. Right, okay. So, I'm thinking, so New Unlimited, why don't you suggest a topic for socionics, seeing as, because you have only had a minimal introduction to socionics, you probably are the lowest common denominator. What would you be interested in talking about for socionics to start off with? Or any questions you may want to ask?
I'll just listen for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one of those little bottom title things. INTJ and MBTI, I see. Okay. In which case... Oh, Andrea. Oh, hey Andrea, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Your wonderful silhouette today.
Yes, trying to fix that.
Okay.
That's not making it better. Whatever. I'll be the creepy one with the shadow.
Okay. As you have the most interesting appearance at the moment, why don't you suggest the topic for conversation? Because I deliberately have not come up with a topic.
Wasn't it Quadras?
Was it Quadras?
Yeah, I was very interested in the Quadras.
Oh, it was. Was it Quadras? I completely forgot it was about Quadras. That's annoying. Oh, dang it! I foiled my own plot. That's annoying. Okay, we're going to talk about Quadras. Right. Now, what other Quadras are represented here currently? At the moment, I can see a number of alphas and a number of betas. Yeah, that's interesting already. Where are the gammas and where are the deltas? It's almost as if they're less interested in just spontaneously hanging out. Okay. So there's already a pattern here. Although we don't know about the about Max and New Unlimited. We don't know what your types are, so we can't factor you in to derive a pattern. But yes, at the moment it seems to be alphas and betas. That is pretty cool. Yes, so Quadras. Now, who here already knows about Quadras and knows and is pretty confident about what the different Quadras are?
I'd count myself in that lot.
Okie dokie. Who is that person behind you, Al?
It's my mother.
Ah, hello, Mrs. Roback. We are privileged to see Mrs. Roback, the person who gave birth to the wonderful creation that is Al.
Now I'll have to make a trophy or something.
Yes. Okay. What quadra is Mrs. Roback?
Delta.
Delta. Sounds very Canadian.
Rather.
Okay. So, for instance, what would you say are the differences between you as an alpha and your mother as a delta?
Sorry, differences between a delta mother and myself as an ILE?
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, exactly. Between you as an alpha ILE and her as a delta, I don't know what exact type is, but what are the quadra differences, would you say?
So I'd type her as EII. So I very much do feel supervised. Definitely, I'd say the valued functions come out quite clearly. So there's still the underlying valuing of SI and NE, but definitely a difference between having TI and FE versus FI and TE.
I see. So there's definitely that sort of difference between you as being a merry type with your valuing of extroverted ethics and introverted logic, and her as being a serious type with her valuing of introverted ethics and extroverted logic.
I would say so, yes.
I see. And that's one of the things that can be demonstrated almost in the particular people we have now. The fact that the alphas and betas, which are merry types, have shown up, and not the gammas and deltas, which are the serious quadras, have not shown up, shows there's a fundamental difference, as it were, in terms of ethics, at least, valuing whether one should get into groups to have fun all together, or if one should be very, very selective in sorting out individuals to spend one's time with, and forming more one-on-one connections as opposed to creating a general ambience of fun or enjoyment. And yes, I say that sense it definitely seems to be a manifestation in reality, what we've seen right now, this pattern. Now the other Max has come. Max has duplicated himself. Andrea, what did you say?
I think it could also be like maybe like merry types are just more interested in group behavior rather than like one-on-one. Like what you said, but it's more of like an interest in like that. Like for example, if you just made a Google Hangout about like each individual like IM function, I probably wouldn't be as interested as just like Quadras, because it's like that study of group interaction.
Yes.
I think Mary, like, yes. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes, like for instance, there's so many dynamics which you can see happening in the group, and there's different shifts and changes that happen with Mary types. Because extroverted ethics is dynamic ethics. It's in a constant state of flux. It's often changing and moving. Whereas with introverted ethics, as a static ethics, it kind of remains fixed. It wants to stay in good relations with people they identify as good, and they don't particularly like to change from that. So it's interesting to see how studying these group dynamics, these changes in the group, in a group conversation, is something which would be attractive to alphas and betas, and less attracted to gammas and deltas, who may not want to be part of the this group movement, these changing attitudes within the people who are participating. Oh, interesting. Max cannot speak because it's at night in this country. I'm thinking, Max, it might be a good idea, because there are a limited number of places in this hangout, and because there seems to be a larger demand of people who want to participate in the hangout, it might be a good idea to watch the hangout as a live video, as opposed to actually being on this particular hangout right now, so that people who do want to participate and speak might be a good idea. Anyway, what were we talking about? I can't remember. Yes, so there's that particular difference in the quadras, the merry and serious divide. Another aspect of... Oh, someone else has turned up. Natalie? Hello, Natalie. I don't think I've met you before. You look rather like a koala. Ah, the koala speaks. Well, exhales. The koala exhales. I suppose koalas must be able to exhale, as they have lungs. They are mammals, after all. Hello?
Hello?
Ah, the koala has a female voice.
Yes. I'm Brazilian.
Oh, you're Brazilian. That is very
Yes.
useful. We are actually thinking of setting up a Brazil chapter soon. I've been talking to Jean da Silva, and he's interested in setting one up. We might be having meetups in Brazil in the next few months.
Okay. Great.
That's useful. Do you self-identify as a type, Natalie?
I believe IEI.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
No, that's fine. I'm not going to question your type. No. What I'm trying to do is, we've actually noticed a pattern already, and the people who have bothered to show up for this hangout. People who have shown up for this hangout have all been either alpha or beta, which suggests that it's a merry quadra thing to actually want to attend a Google Hangout like this. Just have lots of people just randomly show up and engage in some sort of group conversation. We have plenty of...
I'm a little bit shy.
What was that?
Are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
Ah, okay. I am a little bit shy right now. I didn't think I was going to talk. No.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry. We can move attention on to someone else. Let's say
Okay.
So,
okay,
Jack,
what's it?
sorry, I have to cut in about your koala comment there and just say that they're marsupials, not mammals.
Marsupials are mammals. Marsupials are a particular kind of mammal. A bit like monotremes. I mean, and that's the monotremes. They're the ones who really push the boundaries of mammal, because they actually lay eggs, but they're still called mammals. And they actually have the lowest body temperature of mammals. So they're actually they're the mammals that are closest to reptiles. Which is why I love echidnas. Echidnas are great. Egg laying, and they actually feed their young by secreting milk through pores in their skin. So they're not even mammalian enough to actually develop udders.
Could you call that bleeding milk, perhaps?
Yeah, it's like bleeding. It's like they excrete. It's excretion, I guess. Yeah, bleeding milk mammal monitoring things. Yeah. Okay, so New Unlimited said that a friend of his thinks that he is an ILI.
Yes.
Okay. That is now that is one type that INTJs are commonly. It is also the type which INTJs most often type themselves at, as if they believe that INTJ and MBTI simply due to the function crossover, which isn't necessarily correct. But yeah, we can use that as a running hypothesis. In which case, as a running hypothesis. Oh, okay, it doesn't matter. The hypothesis has been broken because Karina's just shown up, and Karina is neither an alpha nor a beta. Karina is a gamma. Hey Karina, how are you doing? She's waiting for the opportunity to speak. She doesn't have her mic on yet. But yes, Karina is a gamma socialite, so neither alpha nor beta. So she's just broken the pattern. However, statistically, there are still significantly more alphas and betas than gammas, and no deltas, which is. Yeah, still ace. It's still a pattern, still a strong trend, but it's not an absolute rule anymore. Oh, and Karina's gone. She's realised. She's realised. This
She got offended.
It's too merry for her. She's gone. What are we talking about? Okay, so we're talking about so the merry and serious divide, which I think is being well reflected here. There is another divide between the quadras, which is known as decisive and judicious. Now, that's a divide that splits most people here who are alphas and betas. It's essentially due to sensation intuition rather than ethics and logic. So people who are alpha, also people who are delta, so supposedly the youngest quadra and the oldest quadra are the ones who are more about physical well-being and enjoyment, and essentially just indulging in pleasures and fascinations and curiosities, and anything that particularly happens to catch their fancy. And there's a tendency for the middle two quadras, the betas and the gammas, to be far more purposeful and determined, more about ambition and fighting for something larger than themselves. So there's an idea almost, I know my friend Rowan, he often calls it as world acceptingness and world rejectingness. I see it more as one is about world enjoying, the other one is more about fighting within the world for something greater than how the world is at the moment.
Okay.
And yes, you may find that the betas here are far more interested in fighting for something that's bigger, less interested in what they will call trivialities. The betas tend to see the day-to-day as more trivial and tend to look for some sort of higher purpose. Whereas the alphas, they are more about enjoying the here and now, seeing what is interesting and pleasurable to experience. And for them, their intuition would be more about finding new and interesting and cool ways of doing things, or of experiencing things, rather than ignoring what's enjoyable here and now for something greater, or at least something which they may feel is greater. So that's another major divide. But there's a divide that separates people in this group of the alphas and the betas. But someone else has popped in. Reno? Hello? Hello, Reno? Ah, she speaks. Well, she speaks in text form. How are you today, Reno?
Him.
Oh, him. Oh, why did I think it was a girl? I don't know why. Reno sounded like, I know, Lana maybe. My friend Rana's female. Okay. Hello, Reno. Mm. Okay, that person listening in. Right. Okay, not sure what this is about, but curious nonetheless. Okay. Do you have any experience with socionics, Reno? Okay, not really an experience. How did you find out about us, Reno? Did you just see it advertised on Google Plus? Just waiting for it. Does not remember. Okay, fascinating. Right. Well, Rita, you're in for a treat because we're going to be discussing personality types, specifically the value systems of different personality types. Doesn't that sound interesting? Oh, Max wants to know if oh, good. I like the enthusiasm, Reno. Max, okay, wonder if any Russians here? Not yet. Well, Reno seems to be Greek, but apart from that, there are no Russians. Yes, no Russians yet. Latvian. Okay, I take that back. Latvian, which is pretty close to Russia. Okay, so you are officially the closest person to Russia here. And he knows Russian. Okay, we got someone who essentially speaks Russian. We can bend a few national boundaries and call him Russian. There we go. He may take offense to that. Maybe not. Maybe we should not call him Russian.
Maybe not.
Okay, so I've run through two main differences between the quadras. So we got the judicious and decisive divide. The idea that one's far more about relaxation and things that they find particularly interesting and chasing after those interesting curiosities. And then we got the other, far more about fighting in the here and now, applying one's will against other opposing forces in order to essentially compete for something greater, some sort of long-term destiny or some long purpose, or something that will last longer than one's individual lifespan. So that will be the difference between judicious and decisive. And then we had the serious and merry divide of the merry types being interested in this sort of communal group interactions where people can show up and they can create positive service emotions. And whereas the serious types being far more about one's personal attitudes towards each other person and forming more solid judgments of each person. And then also the difference in logic, the idea that the serious types are more interested in the productive application of knowledge to make things more practical, to make things work better, to absorb the facts and apply it in a way that is practical. Whereas the alphas and betas, the merry types, are far more interested in looking for an internal structure that ties everything together, that makes everything coherent and consistent. So those are the two main divides between the quadras. There's also a dichotomy known as aristocratic-democratic, which is something I've been looking into and quite interested in that it seems harder to demonstrate from the axioms that lead to one demonstrating merry, serious, and judicious, decisive. But it's an interesting trend that I've noticed recently in our quadra groups. World Socionics Society has been performing a few projects and experiments, and one of those has been to create these quadra groups. So groups that are designed for members of World Socionics Society who are of a specific quadras. And then people of those specific quadras get into these quadra groups and allowed into these quadra groups, where it's run by people of that quadra for people of that quadra, and have been encouraged to essentially be themselves. Oh, I see that the koala is making noises. Are you enjoying your eucalyptus there?
Yes.
Good. Must be tasty eucalyptus. The koala laughs.
Yeah,
Okay.
well.
Right, what did I say? I was saying that we have essentially been doing experiments by putting people of different quadras into quadra groups. And the idea is that when you get people of the same quadra together, without the interference of people from other quadras, we thought there would be
Thank you.
an intensifying of their quadra-related behaviors, and that seems to be what has happened. Looking at alpha quadra, for instance, they've got progressively more silly. And looking at beta quadras, they got progressively more passionate and prone to making rants and tirades. Looking at the gamma quadra, well, I think the gamma quadra hasn't taken off as much just yet, because some of our most gamma people have actually objected to the creation of gamma groups, which is very interesting. Because gammas aren't really group people; they like to meet in little like maybe twos or threes at most, and they tend to usually have rather harsh conversations with each other. But in that way, I suppose it does make sense. But the gamma quadra has become the most austere quadra. Now, whereas the delta quadra, essentially the most sensitive and private of the quadras, I'd say, is the one that has almost had all its activity taken off a particular group. Instead, you have a few posts in the group, but most of it is done through private messages. And you see this major change from the alphas and betas who like to post lots. Betas especially like to post lots and lots of rants, and everyone join in with these particular rants that they made a particular post to want to essentially express to the rest of the people there. And then you have the opposite with the deltas, who take everything to private messaging. And the idea being that you have to once people like you enough, once each individual may like you enough, then they may invite you into their particular private message to have a more private conversation about their private issues, which are private. So there is you can actually see these quadra behaviors manifested in the quadra groups. Now, the reason I wanted to I brought up this quadra groups, first of all, because I thought it's rather interesting as an experiment, but also I think it's starting to demonstrate this democratic and aristocratic dichotomy, in that we asked the quadra groups whether they would like to let people of other quadras into their group just to freely observe or participate. Now, the alphas had no issue. They don't particularly care. They just want everyone to have fun in the group. They don't particularly like to exclude people. Alphas don't really like excluding anyone. They don't let anyone in. And they were fine with it. The gammas started just debating where there should be a group in the first place, and whereas most of them didn't particularly want anyone coming into their group anyway. They weren't particularly interested in being in the group either. So you had this skepticism of the group, or the idea of the group. And then you have the distinct aristocratic tendencies that were shown by both beta and delta. In that the idea of aristocratic is the idea that they see and identify things as being groups. Oh, Reno has just asked a question. Are the groups analogous to introverts and extroverts? No, that is not the case. You'll find that you have both extroverts and introverts in all quadras. Rather than being about being extroverted or introverted, it's about an attitude towards communication with others. So you may have someone who's introverted, but still be a merry type, like for instance an IEI like Andrea or Natalie here, who would essentially enjoy group interactions, but may not be the particular pusher in the group. The person who's actually driving things forward, but is often more the person who is adapting and adjusting and integrating these social communications. And then you may even find someone who's an extrovert who what about change between groups, for instance? I used to be more extrovert and that has since changed. Well, it depends what we mean by extrovert and introvert. So there is a lay definition of extrovert and introvert, where extroverts will socialize more and introverts will hide behind cupboards and read books. But in socionics, at least, we have a more nuanced definition of extrovert and introvert. I actually prefer to use the terminology of energizer and integrator.
Yeah.
My reasoning being that you may find someone who's logical and an extrovert, like myself, for instance, who, although I do like some casual interaction now and again, I'm more interested in what I'm particularly getting out of it. I don't need to see people for the sake of seeing people. I don't have the same, at least I wouldn't say that when I say I don't need to, I'm not consciously aware of my need to. I'm more interested in what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and whether I'm getting what I want in a particular situation. I'm kind of less turned on to the interpersonal interaction aspect. As a result, despite being an energizer in socionics, I'm definitely someone who drives things and gets things going. As the example being here, I'm not a particularly sociable person, and some people may call me an ambivert, and according to the lay extrovert-introvert term. However, in sociology, I definitely fit the role of an energizer. In the same way, you may find someone who is an introvert, or an integrator in the sociological system, and they may be highly sociable and constantly seeing people and friends of everyone, but there may not particularly be someone who actually likes to drive a situation. They may tend to take a more background role, or may take a more adaptational role, and just make sure that when the big changes are made, they're the ones who are essentially making sure all the pieces are knitted together to make sure that it's actually finished and complete. So in a way, one can call the integrator. The introvert becomes more of an integrator in sociology and less of a shy person. At the same time, if you're introverted and you're logical, you're more likely to be stereotypically introverted. If you're extroverted and ethical, you're more likely to be stereotypically extroverted. But even then, there are contradictions to that rule. Even then there are exceptions to that rule. But yes, that does. Okay, thank you very much. That does make it clear. Yes. Okay. So, where were we? We were talking about aristocratic, democratic. That's what we were doing. Right. So, aristocratic, democratic. Well, I said that the alphas really didn't mind who came in. The gammas started debating about why there should even be a group in the first place. And with some refusing to even be in the gamma group because they didn't like the idea that at one point people weren't let into the gamma group, and other people thinking, I don't mind really, I don't really particularly want to see new people in this group anyway. It's the betas and the deltas who formed a sense of identity in their particular group, and from there didn't like the idea of outsiders entering the group. So betas and deltas have definitely come to a conclusion of not wanting people who are not beta and not delta to come into their particular group. And you'll find that if someone who's not of beta, for instance, comes into the beta quadra, there may be a certain amount of hostility they may be faced with. With the delta group, if someone who's not delta were to somehow come in, then all the deltas may actually start to back off, and may even try and leave the group to stay away from the person who just entered into their territory.
This makes me feel confused, really. I believe I'm a delta sometimes because I don't like to change things. I like to invite people in groups. I tend to not exclude them. Does it help if I type things?
Okay, no, that's fine. To say you tend to like to invite people into groups. You don't like to exclude them.
Yes.
Okay. Now there is an idea that with beta. Okay, so it's once betas has a certain group identity. There's the idea that there's often a sense of evangelism with beta groups. The idea that they want to expand in their influence and take in more people to join them. So betas are very happy for people to join and become part of their group, to enter the fold, as it were. But in the case of the quadrants, where if you're not a beta, you're definitely not a beta, where you're of another quadra. The idea is that you can't suddenly be inducted into beta. Then you are already, by the system, declared as an outsider to beta. And that's where beta may not want that person to be in their particular group. There's the idea in beta that join us or you may be the outsider. So there's always that invitation to become part of a group of beta. In the same way as one may expect a certain revolution, anyone who, if you express the wish to join and show a commitment to the cause, like the other beaters, then you can become a brother of a cause. In fact, the idea is that once you're actually in with the beaters, it has probably the warmest sense of community that there can be. Because the idea is that by you being a brother of our cause, by being a comrade, that's in my example, you are subject to the same level of rights as everyone else in the beta group, and you are. And everyone is treated fairly and equally in that particular group. It's the idea that if you have either refused to be part of the whole, or if you are by your nature, in the case of socionics, you'll never be part of that whole because you're not a beta. Then that can lead to that sort of wanting to keep you out, or that need to resist. There's often an idea of beta to resist the outsider, to resist the one who does not want to be part of us, who doesn't want to join in our cause.
Okay, so he tends to separate and not see as a whole, a thing that is not in groups, really.
So sorry, I didn't quite hear that properly.
The Delta don't see things in groups. They just.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's my original problem with that aristocratic democratic. It seemed to be very much based on the idea of one sees groups and the other one doesn't see groups. And I think to myself, but Delta is meant to be one of individual relations between people. So why should it be prone to seeing things in groups? And I think it's because it does form an idea of I don't think it sees it as a group in the same way that Beta sees it as a group. But it seems to form a sense of it still forms a sense of community, not so much a community of a whole or entering a fold, and not particularly interested to make people join the fold. But it's more like this is my collection of individual friends who I particularly like, and they may be sensitive towards people they don't like so much, who are strange or even frightening to them, entering into their mixing in among the friends they particularly have. So I think it leads to this very similar aristocratic behaviours with betas. But yes, as they are serious types, they are more disposed towards their individual friends and relations than they are towards the general circle they particularly belong to. There's the idea of Delta that there is no real sense of. There's no demonstrated sense of belonging in the same way there is with beta. Betas love to belong. There's a need to belong to the group. There's a need to be part of the fold, be integrated into the very structure of the group's running. Whereas with Delta, it's not nearly so centralist. It's each person can break off and have their individual conversations, and which is why everything's taken to PM. Nevertheless, when someone who is not Delta comes into Delta, the people in Delta become uneasy. They become uneasy. They may not really know what this person's going to do. They don't know whether they can trust them or not, and that leads to almost a withdrawing from the public space. And when asked whether they wanted people to join the group or not, there was a strong vote that they did not want other people to enter the group. So in this way, it does seem to confirm the hypothesis of an aristocratic democratic divide.
Okay.
Can I comment on that a bit?
Hmm?
Can I comment on that a bit?
Yes.
Since there's no deltas here, having talked with the deltas about this question,
Yes.
the way they explained it to me is that so the groups are based around FI. So basically, so when you have a small group, each individual has to have a connection to each other individual in the group.
Yes.
Which is quite different from the other quadras. And what apparently often happens is that you get groups and subgroups and subgroups and overlapping groups and interlocking groups and so on, where people find they have different connections on different things.
Mm-hmm.
So you might get like a small group that's part of a larger group that's part of a larger group that people feel differing levels of comfort with people.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, kind of unique for Delta.
Yes, it's like a network, as it were.
And another aspect of this is that they don't want people to feel excluded. They're generally not the kind of people that they don't want to they don't want other people to feel like they're rejected or judged. Even if they're saying they're judging and they'd rather spend time with other people, they don't want them to do that. So, and when the groups form, they tend to basically just form the group and not tell the other people who aren't involved. There's lots of that sort of stuff going on where people just don't know that there's some other group formed or whatnot.
Yes. And there's actually... Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, there isn't that hierarchical sense that's in the beta side. It's a different kind of interlocking groups.
Yes, exactly. It achieves a similar outcome despite working at it in a completely different way. And that's another thing we mentioned is actually a point of contention between betas and deltas. When a beta often has an issue with another beta, they want to lay the issue down the table, maybe even fight it out, often in a setting where everyone can see. The idea is they want to bring everything out clear, directly, in the open, in a way that they see as honourable. The way they see that they owe it to the other person to do it in that particular way. With deltas, on the other hand, they're more prone to... the betas tend to see the deltas the ones who tend to whisper behind people's backs. The idea of deltas is that they don't like conflict. They don't want conflict, and they don't want to deal with things particularly directly because that may be too intimidating. They want to risk an actual confrontation. Instead, they may go towards their particular friend or someone they can actually trust, and they may then get the particular issue off their chest with that particular person. Now, the beta sees a delta as essentially being almost dishonorable, someone who goes behind people's backs and twitters about them, without them being party to that twittering. Whereas the delta sees the beta as overly confrontational, overly direct, and slightly scary. So you see this. Often this can lead to disputes between people who are betas and people who are deltas. They simply do not understand how the other side deals with conflict and deals with stress and deals with grievances at another party.
So, I believe I'm a delta.
Okay.
I'm kind of confused really with INFJ and INFP. It's the same story, blah blah blah, but it's kind of confusing really. FE really resonates with me, but NE too.
Okay. Well, if you are both intuitive and ethical, then you're going to be strong at both kinds of intuition and both kinds of feeling, or ethics in socionics. The question is whether you value one or the other.
Yes.
Now, I said the betas, in terms of their humanity, we're talking about the humanitarian specifically in beta and delta. I really asked what I mean by ethical. Ethical is similar to feeling in MBTI, but not exactly the same. It definitely is derived from Jungian feeling. The idea of something that is, first of all, it's a kind of rationality. So the idea of it's focusing on the idea of oughts, shoulds, and judgments. And it's unlike logic or thinking, which is logic would be seen as detached and as external to us, so objective. Feeling or ethics is going to be internal and involved, so we actually vivaciously experience it. We feel it. You can be, whenever we say that we use feel in two ways. We either feel something in a sensory way, we physically feel it, or we feel it emotionally, and that will be something that's involved. So in something that's involved and internal, so subjective in our heads, and that would be what ethics is. So essentially we're dealing with the oughts and shoulds that are subjective and felt. You saying it's no connection to ethics in the traditional sense. It does have a connection to ethics in the traditional sense, although so do others. So one can use logic as well to form ethics. So ethics, ethics in the traditional sense, when composed by someone who's ethical, we're most likely to do with how they feel people should be, how they feel people should act towards each other in their social interactions, whether something is good or bad in the evaluative judgment. So essentially, yes, judging if something is good or bad actually corresponds very much to introverted ethics. It's how do I feel about this? Do I have a good feeling about this? Do I have a bad feeling about this? So it does correspond to the most organic kind of ethics in a traditional sense. Whereas someone who's more logical, more of a logical type, may try to propose objective rules for code of conduct. Something that Kant tried to do. He tried to turn all ethics into deontological principles, or more extroverted logic approach like Mill, well, not so much, well, more so Bentham, is to actually come up with the idea of what's ethical, simply what's most practically leads to the best practical result. So one kind of trying to come up with some sort of rule or principle or algorithm for explaining what is good and what is bad. But those who deal with a basic gut feeling, this is good, this is bad, that will be a kind of ethics in the socionic sense.
Okay.
But so yes, ethics is so the oughts and shoulds that are subjectively made are going to be ethics. Now, where were we? We were
in
yes.
between.
Beta.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay, so beta, their ethics, or is the ethics they value, is going to be extroverted rather than introverted. They're going to value this group feeling, this idea of essentially pushing emotions out there onto the group to make them feel a certain way, to create changes in the group, so people may feel inspired towards some sort of action, make people feel happy, make people feel sad, make people feel a sense of wonder, maybe. Anything that affects the group mood to make people feel some way. And those who are, whereas Delta will be introverted ethics valuing. So rather than seeking to influence the group mood, it's going to be far more about acting in line with one's personal feelings, or one personally feels is good or bad, what one's conscience says. So whereas someone who's going back to the Mary idea, someone who sometimes Mary may want to make sure that people around them, the old mood is one's of a good mood. If there's a happy mood, they won't want to spoil the mood by acting in a way that is contradictory to what the group is working towards or what is feeling. For instance, someone who's extroverted ethics valuing may not appreciate the party pooper sort of person who pours cold water on the event. Those who are introverted ethics valuing is far more about acting in line with one's conscience. So doing what they personally feel is good or bad, regardless of what the group movement is. As a result, they're often ones who may end up pouring cold water on the particular party because they personally feel that something else is they should follow what they personally feel is important or good. Now, of course, with a Delta, they are conflict averse, so rather than actually create issues or problems in the beta group, they may just decide to rather quietly remove themselves from the group so they can do their own particular thing they feel is good, and just want to get away from what they feel is bad. Now, that would be the difference between the different sorts of ethics that are valued between beta and delta. The intuition that's valued between beta and delta is also different. So betas value introverted intuition. So there's the idea that they like this sort of long-term purpose, developments, where things are going in the long run. The beta essentially thinks there's some sort of higher cause, some sort of maybe even a destiny or a purpose that their life is part of, as opposed to as opposed to simply doing what is particularly comfortable for their particular well-being. As a result, they see their life as being a sort of journey or leading to some sort of purpose. Often you'll find that this goes with extroverted ethics, the idea of persuading people along this journey, along this sort of destiny or approach. It's quite common in a number of religions or political movements, but there's some cause we have to fight for, and we have to persuade everyone to join in this particular movement. And often you find the idea of this sort of messianic coming of some sort of savior in some sort of long-term sense, leading to a life of prosperity in the days to come, that you find with those who are introverted intuition valuers. And along with the extroverted ethics, it leads to some sort of dramatic proclamation. The idea that when one's talking about this outcome, talking about this sense of purpose, it's done in a way that persuades people to join in emotionally. It dramatically proclaims to others that something important is going to happen, and we all need to get together to work towards this thing that's going to happen. Now, deltas, on the other hand, their intuition is going to be extroverted. So instead of it being about some long-term purpose beyond themselves, it's going to be more about what could happen, what are the possible things that might happen, and what they're particularly interested in happening. So you'll find that those who are extrovert intuition valuing will be more interested in going after the different possibilities they find particularly interesting. Combine that with introverted ethics, you get this sort of the sense of people possibilities idea. That in the case of the IEE, it's, oh, I find these particular things interesting, and these are the friendships I can make, so I can go after these things I find particularly interesting, and exploring these different possibilities and networks with these different people. And then with the EII, leading with introverted ethics, is what I feel is particularly good, and seeing the potential of other people to be good. You'll find that in the EII, when someone does something maybe rather wrong to the EII may say that action was bad, that's a bad thing, but I think that person still could potentially be a good person. So I will maybe work to see how that person could be better, or give them the benefit of the doubt that they could be a better person. There's this idea in the Delta Quadra of good faith judgment, the idea that you give them the benefit of the doubt that they are essentially a good person who just simply needs the right situation, right opportunity to be good. And there's that. So that's the differences between the beta and delta. But for delta, it's about the potential to do good actions. For beta, it's about the purpose or destiny of and persuading people along that purpose or destiny. So yes, does that answer your question?
Yes, I think yes.
Now, from that long monologue I gave, which one of those do we say sounds more like you?
I think delta now.
Okay.
I was really confused about the IE,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the judging a person if it's good or bad resonates more with me. I tend to do this a lot.
Yes, and that's another idea that for the deltas, they come to their personal judgment of what is good and what is bad. For beta, it's not so much about what each individual may think is good or bad. It's what the group is working towards and those who may be opposed to the group. So it's the idea that instead of it being a sense of inherent goodness or inherent badness, it's what we are working towards and people who may contradict what we are working towards. The idea being that it's almost the introverted logic that actually decides whether someone is an outsider or not. That they are opposed to our ideology or our set of rules, and therefore they must be resisted. And furthermore, despite betas being capable of showing hostility towards people, they are actually less condemning. In that when battle is taken out in the field, for instance, against the enemy, they both are quite aware that they're simply people on opposing sides. That doesn't mean that necessarily that the enemy is necessarily a wicked person. So a good example of this I find is in the First World War, where there was people were essentially attacking each other and killing each other, and there are millions of people doing this. However, they when it was time for when Christmas Day arrived, they put down their guns and they went out and they played football. And it showed this idea, and it showed this warrior mentality. The idea that one's fighting for one's homeland or one's sense of destiny, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the person fighting you is wicked or bad. And then the betas are actually quite opposed to the idea of judging someone as wicked or bad. They may, for the sake of propaganda, say that the enemy does nasty things, that they may roast babies on bayonets or whatever. But that's more as of a way to create sense of unity in the group against the common enemy. It isn't necessarily something that actually judge the person as being of bad quality and character. It never goes towards the individual as being a bad person. Rather, they tend to see it as being, just in general, the outsider is something which we must fight against.
So, Jack, do you view the creation of sort of doublespeak or military lingo as a gamma invention?
So, sorry, doublespeak
or military lingo, talking about splash damage rather than fatalities and civilians being killed, that sort of thing.
Let me think. Oh, I see. So, in other words, okay, you mean
like dehumanization.
Euphemisms to dehumanize. I think I actually have a tendency to think that with gammas, they don't like to change. They don't like to change the meanings of words that they're conveying. The idea that as beta is more aware of the effect a particular word will have on the group, or how it may be used to persuade. With gammas, there is a tendency for them to straight out say what they feel, how they feel it, in a way that may be unpleasant to people around them. A good example is when Rowan said that he's not going to attend this meetup while these people are involved because he heavily dislikes them, which is basically straight out saying how he feels in a rather harsh manner, but immediately made the alphas cringe. But an idea that I do not actually. From that, I'd say that it's unlikely that it'd be the gammas who would create a certain sort of lingo to make the meaning sound softer or more appreciated. I think that may make more sense in the beta quadrant. I said there is
Oh, Jack. Sorry. Continue. Just finish what you were saying.
Okay. Well, so I was saying is that if a beta are fighting against an enemy, I say one of the in military terms, when there is an enemy to fight, there is often the use of propaganda. The idea that use of propaganda inspires a sense of will to fight, a will to actually resist the enemy force, and sometimes that can, in some circumstances, that can also involve making statements about the opposing side, that they are, unlike us, that they are doing things that are bad, saying roasting babies on bayonets. And there may be a sense, and that may create a dehumanizing effect in the enemy. It may create the idea that for the purposes of war, the enemy is not quite the same level of humanity as us. In negative circumstances, that may have been what led to issues like the Holocaust in the Third Reich. So I think the use of military lingo may actually fit in better with beta. Oh, Max, before you go, I just wanted to answer your question about in Russia people use nicknames such as INTJ for Robespierre. Yeah, we actually have a new set of nicknames that we're creating. Just thought I'd let you know that. We got a new set of nicknames which are available in one of the files on World Socionics Society. So if you take a look at World Socionics Society, I can I'll maybe point you to the file. I'll do that on Facebook. I'll point you to the right file on Facebook later.
It's okay.
What were you saying,
Okay.
Andrea?
Okay, so because I'm taking a sociology class this year,
Yes.
and it's paired with ethics, I find that there's quite a few people who are very quick to judge, they're very loud about it. They're very they vocalize their harsh judgments very well. So that's what more characteristic of gamma?
I'd say so. I mean, it's the quickness to judge is the blocking of introverted ethics with extroverted sensation. Extroverted sensation essentially fighting now. doing things now that need to be done and acting now. So combine that with introverted ethics, essentially making quick judgments, often harsh judgments, against someone, saying, can I trust this person, can I not trust this person? If I don't trust this person, then I have to make sure he can't hurt me. And so so they very quickly assess if that is a bad person or a good person, often in a rather comparatively black and white way compared to the way deltas do it. And they'll then act accordingly with their sentiments towards that person. Because the flip side to this is that once you earn the trust of a gamma, they can be probably the most reliable, dependable friends you can have. The idea is that there's an effort you have to show to put in to gain and earn their trust. Trust has to be earned very much with the gammas. But once it is earned, it's kept a long time between you and that individual person. But yes, the idea to quickly form a harsh judgment is something which one does tend to see with gammas, and it's quite interesting to watch a gamma conversation. We actually had one very recently on the main group, and it started with Ania, Si, and Nilo having a discussion. One called the other arrogant, based on what he given us a very quick summarizing of this theory he disagreed with, and then they started discussing a bit more, and eventually the Isla said, I'm not interested in continuing this conversation. And the ESI goes, thank you for telling me that. And it just shows it does not matter how harsh it gets, they actually are more appreciative of conversations getting more harsh. Because they know that way they know where the other person stands in relation to them. And it's something which the alphas will do. My eyebrows were completely raised while reading this conversation. I was thinking, that's a bit rude, saying you're not interested in continuous conversation. That's not very nice. What about the person's? What about keeping it nice and friendly? But apparently that's what the gammas like. I'll never understand gammas, but that's what they like. That's how they like their conversation. I'm definitely an alpha, and
Yeah.
I often like to keep it nice and sugar coated, whereas for them, no, their language can appear rather scary to the alphas.
Yeah, in my sociology class, we were talking about, like, this woman, she stole someone else's identity to, like, kind of build her life back up, but, like, she paid off all the bills, so, like, she didn't, like, steal any money or anything, but they're trying to condemn her, like, to hell, like, for, like, just simply stealing someone's identity and doing absolutely no damage. I'm like, okay, she can get arrested, but, like, don't condemn her to hell and say that she's, like, the most evil person in the world. Let's, they were so quick to judge on that.
There is a tendency, especially in I noticed when Christianity went through a gamma phase, for instance, the idea that the wicked person goes to hell is a very strong aspect of it. The ESI can often be seen as a sort of avenging angel, and that it brings retribution against those who are wicked, who have done them a particular wrong. And it's actually, well, in the beta and gamma quadras, there is the idea that by combining extrovert sensation with introvert intuition, a deed that is done is not really forgotten. The idea that not only is there a long-term purpose, but there's also the idea that the events happening in the past lead through to the events that are happening now. So when something that is wrong has been done, they do not forget, and they'll bring justice over time through some sort of extrovert sensation, aggressive action. With gammas, it's specifically more that the individual person has done something wrong, and that particular person has to suffer for their bad action. For beta, it's more the idea that that rival faction has done has wronged or has disgraced our particular faction, and so we need to go to a sort of feud with them. So you see these dynamics going on in lots of fighting scenarios.
Do you think that's because of the FI?
The FI specifically is when it attaches it to the bad doing of the individual. The individual has done something bad. That they are a bad person. Yes. Whereas I think with beta groups, for instance, when it looks at for instance, a criminal organization that is often beta, like the mafia, it's a question of your group has disgraced our group, therefore it is only just that we bring that we bring action against your group. So yeah, that's maybe the main difference. And comparing that to the alphas and deltas, who there's a tendency to be more water under the bridge with alphas and deltas. If a wrong is done, they'll simply okay, well, the deltas may get off their chest by talking behind people's backs, but they would see it as talking behind people's backs. The betas see it as deltas talking behind people's backs, and vice versa. The idea is that if you look at each action within each quadra, it's justified because they're in line with their particular values. It's when it's often painted in a negative way when someone of a different quadra tries to describe what they're doing because they don't quite understand or appreciate exactly why it's done, and it takes a certain way of looking at the world to justify their particular actions, and this is why it leads to condemnations from other people and disagreements between people.
Yeah.
Now, what was I saying? Yes, so you find that the alphas and deltas, rather than essentially try to exact vengeance against the rival group or the rival person, the person who's done something wrong, they may have a certain amount of preventative measure, just so that they're not wronged again, or they're but the idea that it's more about self-protection rather than righting some previous wrong. The idea of, instead, their motivation is, how can I make sure that I'm not hurt? How can I make sure that that I'm not damaged? Often they may even be evasive. So at least certainly with EIIs, who can be incredibly evasive when they face something they don't particularly like and they think is wrong, they would soon actually leave the group and then actually confront the situation. If they don't like something, they don't want to make it an issue. They don't want to affect people around them. Instead, they just want to remove themselves from it, get away from it quickly, so that they can be safe again. Yes, and also when the issue is righted, when there's no likelihood of further attack, then it's usually water under the bridge. Usually, people are forgiven. So that would maybe a difference between at least with deltas, the idea of it still needs to be fixed for it to be forgiven. There's an idea of forgiveness. With alphas, I think they just enjoy forgiving. Alphas they enjoy not having a negative issue to deal with in the first place. So if something bad's happened, as long as everyone's smiling again, they'll feel fine about it. The idea of alpha is as long as people are smiling, having a good time, that's all that matters. And who cares about what happened at that particular point? It's just important that people are happy now. So yes, that's also the difference between different quadras. So, I'm wondering if we can go towards open discussion. The question is if I can actually provoke open discussion. Maybe we should have some sort of topic that can actually provoke open discussion. So maybe so let's talk about how each person here identifies a particular quadra that they think they are. Let's start with Al.
Okay, I'm not sure what exactly your question's entailing here, Jeff.
Okay, so Al, how do you identify as an alpha? So what makes you alpha?
Well, I think the two things that I identify most clearly with, which makes sense to me, would be the ego block. So, for me, definitely NE and TI. This sort of need to jump from one interesting or exciting or novel thing to the next, and to get a sort of holistic understanding of it.
Okay. Alon, are you are, are you talking this one, or are you listening?
Well, I've been listening.
Okay. Okay, Alon, what makes you? What about you makes you identify the quadrant that you identify as?
Um, well, I have a lot of theories, so I always thought that was pretty that I was a TI base.
Okay. Andrea, how about you? What makes you a beta?
Well, like, I think the thing I relate to the most is like the idea of kind of fighting for things. Like, I can be very like, how do I describe it? Like, I don't like, I'm not satisfied with like things the way they are. If I want something different, I'm going to go out and fight for it, and like, I can be very dramatic about it. And let's see what else. Like the idea of like group behavior. I definitely feel more at home with like groups, and I tend to go after groups that are more powerful, I guess, within the framework of things. So yeah, that's how I identify with data from the moment being.
Now, Andrea, I just wanted to add that there is a particular society that, or like extracurricular activity that you have been involved with for a while. Maybe you'd be interested in talking about that and how that reflects your quadra.
Wait, what? Like, sorry, go again?
I think I say your extracurricular activities and the competitions you were doing. I thought maybe cause I remember you were telling me about
Oh yeah,
how
yeah.
yes.
Oh yeah, like with bands, I find that it's a very like beta group. Like there's a lot of like hierarchies and a sense of like just like a pecking order in a way. And there's also like a long-term vision. Like you sacrifice your time. Like you have like 12-hour practices each weekend, and you practice like 4 or 5 times like during the week. And like your grades go down, so you're sacrificing a lot for just like this like end goal. And then there's like a sort of like dramatism, like like all the NFs in the group, like the color guard tends to be a lot of beta NFs. They tend to kind of liven things up, promote group unity, things like that. It's very beta.
Mm-hmm.
And fun, but yeah. It also tends to be like very intense. Like the people are aggressive. I don't know how to describe it past that.
But yes, it's like essentially the idea of this essentially band. So yeah, basically it's huge performance that incorporates a very very large team of people performing different actions in this performing whole. Where the fact that you got this band, everyone's playing on their instruments, you got people waving flags, and it's very very American, quintessentially American, I find. But it has essentially it has the idea, yes, of sacrificing your time and your comfort for an end goal, which is this performance. The idea of everyone getting together and enthusiastic performing in this, and then complementing that is this sense of rigid is regimentation. It's the idea that everyone's given their specific goals in this particular group. These people wave the flags, these people bang the drums, these people blow the trumpets, and it all then comes together through this very, very detailed, very, very finely tuned organization to create this overall performance. And you have to be very, very disciplined as well. Everyone has to step in particular formation. You can't step out of the line, because it ruins the entire effect. And the idea that it creates something that's quite beautiful to watch.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. I've seen quite a few of them. I enjoyed them. Karina, how are you? Karina? It's not on. Okay, we'll skip Karina for a moment. Martin, okay, what in your what would you say makes you a beta?
I don't know really.
Okay, we can pass this on. Let me think. Natalie, so you've just come to the decision that you are Delta, and I think you already expressed your reasoning for why you think you're Delta. Okay. New Unlimited. Now you said that you were. Oh yeah, Natalie. Okay,
Oh,
so
wait.
yeah, we think. Yes, okay. Oh,
Hi,
you agree with Delta.
Yeah. Yes. I don't like this group and maintaining this. Oh, I can do I can't do this because people will think this and that, and having to feeling limited in a sense. The beta, I think, is more this way.
Yes, I can see how
Makes
Delta
sense.
may. I see how Delta will look at Beta and may feel limited in a particular way, because the things which a Delta thinks are important are not considered important by Beta, and vice versa. So yes, I can see that.
Yes.
Okay, New Unlimited. So so from what I've said so far, would you say that that Gamma was making sense for you?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. There was a point where I thought that I was Socionics type. It'd be INTP and MBTI, but or I would use the INI and TI basically.
Yes.
But because I would break stuff down, but then like I took a philosophy class and there were a lot of people with that in there, and I was like, that's not me, you know.
Yes, you'll often find that in philosophy classes, you're more likely to find the alphas. The alpha researchers, the MTs, and they're more interested in playing around with different concepts and coming up with logical structures to explain it all, which is essentially that's very much alpha territory.
Yeah, especially when it was like people would be like, or they would be like, okay, yeah, we finished this. Now let's think about all the reasons that we're wrong. And I'd be like, no, that's dumb. Why don't we won? We figured it out. Let's just go on.
Yes. Exactly.
And,
There's a purposefulness with Gamma. Gamma values extroverted logic and introverted intuition. So that means that essentially doing things productively in the long term. Right, once we've done one particular little thing, we want to do what is the idea is reaching towards something more, something greater, some long-term efficacy. And so the Gamma, it wants to go on and wants to solve these big projects, these big business, as it were. Whereas Alpha, it likes the idea of playing the concepts. It likes the idea of moving things around, shifting things around to see what may be some sort of novel way of looking at it that may reach some new insight. For Gammas, the phrase "waste of time" is a very much a phrase used by Gamma pragmatists. Time is money. Waste of time. The idea that you need to be working in a way that for some long-term benefit or some long-term efficacy. And they'll often see alpha activities as a waste of time.
Yeah.
At the same time, the alphas will see the gammas as being killjoys, but anyway. So
I
yes,
can see that.
okay. Yes, well, one thing I might say is that in as World Socionics Society, we're very much into making sure that we don't confuse MBTI and socionics terminology.
Yes.
Yes, there is a tendency people so you could still feasibly be an INTP in MBTI, but be an ILI in socionics, and this is this is often a common correlate. Also because TI and NE in MBTI define it. Yeah, you know. Okay. Reno is not okay. Reno, you can type your oh no, you have no prior experience with socionics, do you? Okay, doesn't matter. I'll skip you as well. Although you may even say in the comments from what you've heard today what you think you might be. I'd be interested to know just from what you've heard so far. Okay, Scott, why do you think that you are an alpha?
Well, I mean, as Al's mirror, I kind of identify similarly with what he said, but it's more maybe about analyzing different kinds of problems and being able to discuss those in in group settings or as individuals, and the general idea of treating people equally and the same, in contrast to the betas. The more the more open-ended, the more open-ended, accepting kind of idea towards group interaction, where you're not required to participate in particular things like the betas tend to do in their group interaction, where you're free to participate to the extent that you want to, and there isn't pressure put on you.
Yes.
And also the general idea of forgiving past transgressions and not holding on to those. Though I don't think it's quite, for me anyway, it's not quite as to the extent Jack says it is, where you it's just okay, you're happy now, it's all over. I still think those often for me need to be addressed, but slightly different there.
Yes, there is a tendency towards the more rational types in Alpha to be at least a teeny weeny bit maybe more serious about things than the irrational types. You may find that, at least for so the LAIs, they still have their rules and principles, and it still needs to be in line with the principles. What's going on? If there are any particular rules or things that may have been broken, they need to be corrected nevertheless. The forgiveness must nevertheless not create some sort of contradiction.
Perhaps that's
okay.
one way of looking at it. Yeah.
Okay, and so going back to myself, I'd say that I fit Alpha rather well. I think that, well, at least in general, I find that if there is some sort of dispute with someone, I'm more worried about my actions towards them. I'm more about worrying that they are in a bad way with me, rather than me being in a bad way with them. And as soon as I'm shown some sort of positive action from them, some sort of even a smile or some sort of sense that they are not seethingly angry at me and wanting to do something bad to me in the middle of the night, I tend to just drop the negative matter. There's also what was also I saying? Oh, Andrea, fine, nice plug on my blog there. That's a very nice plug. Thank you. I was saying, yeah. Yes, also in terms of my main interests are very much like Al and Scott in theory, specifically dealing with socionics. I like socionics because it's a structure that I can play around with and I can create, essentially, come to a way of explaining the world around me. I like the idea that socionics isn't just a psychological theory. Well, as I say psychological, it isn't just a philosophy of psychology. It's a philosophy of existence. It classifies and categorizes everything that makes up our perceived and rationalized world. So I find socionics a particularly interesting theory, and the thing is that socionics was even put together by alpha researchers. So I feel it's very, very alpha of me to be involved in socionics, and trying to work on improving socionics, in perfecting socionics, along similar lines to how Ausher originally tried to create socionics, by going down the different theoretical axioms that categorize abstract stuff, and seeing if it can be deduced more carefully and more precisely. What I find particularly interesting, though, is watching the gammas when they start to chew over socionics. The ILIs chewing on socionics is quite interesting, to say the least. I know that me and Rowan often come to disagreements on this and that, but their approach is very, very different. It's interesting watching in our diagnostic team how the alphas, they like a very, very clear function assignment, like, okay, he does this, we can assign this to leading introverted logic, we can then assign this to mobilizing introverted sensation, and so on. With the gammas, they have a far less structured approach, far more about collecting lots of different observations about a particular person. Okay, for instance, Rowan, a good example, in his blogs will say that he likes cheese. He has a laid-back way of being. He likes tea on a Sunday morning. He has an interesting accent. He dislikes people who are obese. I don't know. He'll go on and go on about its different attitudes or observations about a particular person. From there, he'll finally come to a general idea of what they're likely to be. He may say, I think they are likely to be this type for these reasons, based on these observations. I get the sense for this type. I have a hunch that he may be this particular type from his observations. However, he could feasibly be this other type, which is often rather similar. But for Rho, it's very much to do with the quadra. So almost always going to be in the same quadra, and it's often going to be the alternative typing, maybe the activator, or sometimes the mirror. And then the idea being that he's not actually that interested in the typing being definite and correct. More that he's gone into the right ballpark. Whereas for the alphas, once they've actually laid down the certain definitions and how the function's actually been assigned, they like it to be exact and correct. They want it to be the exact type, and they're not satisfied until the exact type has often been reached. So that's often interesting in how in diagnostics you see a gamma approach to socionics versus an alpha approach to socionics.
I think the gamma approach looks for a reasonable definition rather than a very clear one.
I think that at least yes, I find that well, no, at least from my opinion, I often find the gamma way of doing it less satisfactory for me. But I can see how the idea of coming up with some sort of general hunch of how it is, maybe it'll suit the introverted intuition approach, and the idea of going on more concrete observations. Whereas I can see for the alphas, rather than identifying specific observations, they'll try and find tendencies in the person that are like almost like a representative nutshell of how that person tends to act. So they may say that his approach to this is particularly aggressive, or he's interested in creating a positive mood in the people around him. So they're already abstracted from the observations before they list them. Whereas the gammas, they don't abstract from the observations straight away. They actually go towards the concrete observations. Oh, new unlimited. I am a ILE.
Okay.
Oh, people about to pop in. People about to pop into the lounge. It's going to be interesting because I got a few. So I've got my.
Now a bad time.
Oh, that's fine. You can join in, Rafi.
Oh, is this your hangout?
Yeah, this is my hangout. Okay, this is my friend Rafi. He shares a flat with me.
Hello.
I'm of the opinion at the moment that he's likely an ESC in socionics. However, he's very skeptical towards the idea of socionics as a theory. So he may temporarily for a few minutes and join in with a hangout out of a passing curiosity.
Yeah, sure. Let me say goodbye to Danny first.
Okay.
Which hangout is this? Was this just for general members or?
This is for general members. This is pretty much anyone who turned up whenever.
Oh, so
Sean,
these are
I haven't
my-
seen you in ages.
So these are the people who.
Let me just unplug the headphones so you can actually hear them.
Sure.
Yes. If you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Rafi, please feel free. I think it's likely that Rafi is an ESC from my experience. Oh, he's popped out.
I'm just going to put my coat up.
He's just putting up his coat. He'll be back. Rafi will be back. In the meantime, I'd like to hear from Sean on his opinion of why he's a beta.
I'm sorry, I don't play Quidditch.
Huh? What was that?
We're getting my composure.
Okay. Okay. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions for Rafi, who we think may be an ESC, as an ethical sensory energizer?
Why are you so skeptical of Socion?
Because if I'm not, no one else is there to question Jack. Seeing as I live with him and he believes it is the be-all and end-all of all knowledge, If I wasn't skeptical, he would just let it ride. I make him question the scientific efficacy of it, and I've been giving him advice into how to make it more scientifically sound in the way that he's been conducting his experiments.
Actually, one of Rafi's suggestions, which we recently started implementing on diagnostic team, is for hello. I'm good. You? You know, everything you're doing is being watched by a large number of people. Yeah, it's fun. What was I saying? Yes. So what Rafi had us do was now when someone hands an interview on diagnostic team, and we get the people of diagnostic team to look at the interview, I have them send me their opinion on the type in a PM before they look at any of the comments, before they're made aware of any of the opinions made on that particular person's type. By doing that, we at least improve the reliability. We can then demonstrate that there is a consistency in our opinions on someone's type that is not affected by anyone else's opinion. So yeah, that's one of the things that we've been working on doing. Rafi's quite incorrect. I don't see it as the be-all and end-all of everything. Right, I see it as a very, very good theoretical way of explaining how people may be set up. It's the theory at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also believe, though, that it's too simplistic in its understanding of people. Although it's better than the MBTI, which I had significant issues with.
I completely agree.
It puts itself in the sound basis of being too rigid. You completely dismissed me when I said that I fit into a multitude of categories very well. I 100% fit into the different ones you gave me, and you refused. You said I had to only be in one. And I said that was a problem, because I definitely didn't fit into just one. And I thought one of them was not enough to describe me.
Sorry, this is using write-ups?
He said as in write-ups.
Write-ups.
Oh, in descriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, but so it can always be a flaw in the actual. The issue being that the way Socionics set up is that to be more than one could actually be a logical contradiction. However, the way that it happens to be described, there can be flaws in descriptions. I'm also aware that at the time when I was showing the descriptions, they were actually rather vaguely written, and you could easily identify multiple versions. That is typical for effect.
It was horoscopes.
Yes, no, essentially was. At the time, those in the initial descriptions I found, essentially I copied and pasted from Wikisocion. This is very early on in Socionics. I remember it being, it could feasibly have you identify multiple versions.
I can still hear you, by the way.
Yeah, I can hear me. So, essentially, you could identify multiple descriptions, but that would not necessarily mean that you identify multiple concise, perfected definitions, where to agree with multiple concise, perfected definitions would be contradictory. Oh, he's doing something. He's working in the kitchen.
I can accept questions, it's okay.
You can still accept questions. Have any more questions for Rafi?
Sorry?
I asked him any more questions for Rafi.
Only if they want to. I don't want to bully them into it. That's just mean.
That's true.
Just make myself a snack. I'm starving.
Is anyone uncomfortable with offering questions for Rafi?
Well, that would say a lot about the socionics type, wouldn't it, Jack?
Yes. Anyone?
How often do you shave your beard?
Huh? How often, Rafi, how often do you shave your beard?
How often do I shave my beard? About once every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just lazy that way.
Mm-hmm.
Also, can I just say, in other descriptions to the reason behind my skepticism, is I remember Jack when he was telling me about MBTI as if it was the one and only thing, only for him to then go, yeah, this is complete rubbish. So I'm waiting for him to go back on this one as well.
It's true. Very true. That was the best one I had encountered at the time. At the time, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was like gold dust. But then I found Socionics, and it was better. Objectively better. But I don't know. Ralph, I'm at the point now where I'd say that it is inevitable that something better than socionics will come along.
Like horoscopes. The accurate prediction of somebody through the understanding of the universe as a whole, using the signs in the sky to predict 100% what they're going to do in the rest of their life. That's the way forwards. That's the way forwards.
That always exists as astrology.
Oh, no, but better. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to have more abbreviations in it.
What was I saying? Oh.
Sorry?
Hmm?
Oh, another massive issue I have with sociology is chef's labeling theory.
What's chef's labeling theory?
Chef's labeling theory is the idea that when you give somebody a description, like you are schizophrenic,
yes,
or you have, I don't know, you are a very sensitive person, they start acting up towards the description they were given because it seems like a sort of sense of purpose in their life, and it like everyone desires a need to fill a role, whether they realize it or not.
Oh, wait. Saying, why saying that everyone desires to fill a role?
Because everyone feels like they need to be themselves, but they associate themselves with who am I. Once you tell somebody who they are, there's a greater chance that they'll move themselves towards who they think they are. And whenever you do something, you go, well, that isn't me. That's not how I act. When in reality, you've done it, so that must be you. The fact is, it just disagrees with how you personally perceive yourself as meant to be.
So are you saying that people are actually meant to have fixed senses of who they're meant to be?
No, I'm saying that people don't, but people believe they do.
Okay, so...
I'm saying that personality is fluid, but people believe it's fixed.
Are you saying that all people believe it's fixed?
No, not at all, but a lot of people... The guy has a question.
What is that?
I find that happens most of the time with people who first get into typing.
Yes, there is a phenomenon where people tend to come up with a particular type for themselves, or give a certain type themselves, and then find that they're not actually that type, and they change. And they change to another one, and another one. And they go through a whole cycle before eventually settling on one which they think are them for a long time.
Well, that would suggest a flawed way of a flawed methodology in the typing situation, which is why that's what you need to clean up on.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think socionics does have some uses. I think the problem is that a lot of people who you've definitely introduced me to, and the people who, and you in many terms, have also over-egged its possible uses when it's scientifically exceedingly young in sort of like proper experimental substance. That just sounds like a lot of words to me right now. But what I mean to say is that people say, oh, this is the best thing ever for couples. This is the best thing ever for sorting people into how they will best work and how they'll best do their jobs. I think there's much simpler ways of doing that doesn't require labeling someone's entire personality type. And I think the dangers of labeling someone far outweigh the benefits which other tests could show you what particular job they're good at. On the other hand as well, I think that, you know, the people who this is most best for, the people like those lost souls, those people who are like, I'm not sure who I am, I'm not sure who I want to be. So what they get is they get a direction. And that direction is similar to the labeling theory. They're like, this is who I am now. This is my personality. I've got a sense of who I am. And that's great for people because a lot of people do struggle with that concept of who am I. It's one of the sort of biggest sort of like mind bogglers of anyone can sort of like deal with. How the problem is, it's like, well, who am I? And then they find out their personality type is a psycho killer. And they go, well, in that case, I'm going to kill you all! And it just, you know what I mean? And there are dangers with this.
There are lots of dangers. However, exactly what socionics brings is a sense of explanatory power. It's the idea that when a particular thing happens, one can then say, okay, well, that happens, we may have a way of explaining it based on a certain structure that we have.
The problem is that if you're doing it purely by explanation, you cannot. This is the problem. When people confuse observation for understanding, you see For example, a frog eating a fly.
Yes.
Your initial idea is, well, clearly, the frog ate the fly.
Mm-hmm.
That's observation. However, the understanding could be that that particular type of fly is carrying a spore for a plant.
Mm-hmm.
That spore has released pheromones from the fly,
Yes.
which will attract the frog to eat the fly in order to, I don't know, release more of it out there. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just coming up with a hypothetical here.
Yes.
So your understanding is completely flawed, and the fact is that your observation, therefore, stops you from truly understanding what actually happened. So explanatory, based on surface detail, is actually highly limiting.
Oh no, that's quite true. It's the idea that once one attempts to move things into empirical study, it needs to be done properly by a series of proper studies to actually see if this is reliably and consistently demonstrated to be the case.
Yeah, but I told you, like, we could easily design a study for you.
Yeah.
And if you got about 30, I said 20 is a good number to start with, and then if you got about 25 minimum people who you tested, you'd be able to put together a very brief case and what you showed. The problem is that you'd have to have 25 people of one type, because the thing is, how many types are there? 16?
16.
Right, so there's 16 types. So let's say you've got 25 people.
No, you can't have 25. You need far more. Far more. But I'm saying is that the merits of socionics is not so much of what can be practically proven to happen just yet, because it needs empirical study to do that. Instead, the merits of socionics is that it has explanatory power that is granted not for empirical means, but from a rationalist means. If you compare the empirical and a rationalist approach, the rationalist idea, we have certain axioms or principles, which you can say to be essentially one can assume safely to be the case. One can assume safely to be the case, for instance, that we either feel things vivaciously or not vivaciously. And it's the idea that from there one can then deduce from these axioms which one may accept as being given. One can then deduce a whole framework of a whole structure. And that's the merit of socionics, that it's actually axiomatically deduced.
I hear exactly what you're saying, but I don't think we're disagreeing.
Yes.
But I still hear, in a much more shorter version, people like socionics, and socionics brings people an understanding of who they are as a person because they require that.
Well, that is a tendency of people to approach socionics. That's not the actual. That's not the logical merits it brings.
They do it by rationalism and exploratory, etc. Yada yada yada. But I think that's honestly its biggest merit.
Well, people like it.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the fact is, just because it happens to be...
If it's saying that, MBTI is more liked than socionics in the moment, it's more popular. It doesn't make MBTI better than socionics.
Yes, but it's in the same way you have an alternative music scene. You have some people that are too cool for MBTI because they consider it a flawed scene. And the fact is, once you start showing flaws in it, and once you start showing a better system, regardless of whether if it's better, doesn't necessarily mean correct. So people see it and they see it's better, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. I want to point out also, I'm not saying that socionics is wrong. I don't have any evidence that it's flawed.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that I'm cynical, and my main reason to be cynical is basically to keep Jack on his toes. However, I'm more than happy to take money from him and from this whenever I can.
Rafi is actually doing the art for the book I'm writing.
Oh, you're writing a book?
And the website I'm creating. Yes, I'm writing a book. I'm putting together a book that introduces people to socionics. And the idea being that there is most likely a demand for a book. People want to read about socionics and get an understanding just from that book what it's about and how it works. So I thought writing a book is a good idea. I know Rick DeLong tried to write a book, but he didn't finish it. At least there's no evidence that he finished it because I haven't seen the book around.
How many people are on the Hangout?
At the moment, 9, and there are 2 viewers.
Okay, so how many of them can type?
Most of them can type.
Okay.
So what do you mean by type? Do you mean type as in on the keyboard? Or?
Yeah, as in respond to things. Okay, for a quick
I cannot type. I can't type.
Oh, fair enough. Sorry, Katrina, was that?
That's Karina.
Karina.
Sorry.
I only saw a little name on the slide.
Hmm.
So why don't people now say if they'd be interested in buying a book, probably a Kindle version,
Yes.
and how many people they know that would be interested in it, just to give you a quick show of how useful it would be.
Okay. How many people? Okay, how many people here? Who is?
Like your mother sometimes.
Okay, who is interested in buying a book, and who? How many people do you know who would also be interested in buying a book?
I just came. What is this book? How much does it cost? What is it about?
Okay. A book that essentially introduces socionics, how it works, and essentially from reading that book you get a full understanding of socionics, or at least classical socionics.
That's questionable, but if I probably would be interested in that book. I'm sure most people who are into socionics would be interested. At least interested into looking into it.
I was asking what price point and how hands-on. I was asking what price point. I'd say
$5.
Yeah, I think it's starting
For a Kindle book, $5.
Kindle book $5, yeah.
Hardback $55.
Okay, let's translate that into dollars. How much is it? So about
Roughly around $7.50.
Yeah.
For a Kindle book.
£5.
Yeah.
$7.
Okay, remember, there are people willing to pay £20 for an interview. So.
Yes, but
not many people willing to pay £20 for an interview.
People are more likely to pay for something where they don't have to put the effort in. A book you have to read.
Yes.
You could do an audio version. I could do the voice for you.
Yes, I think you do a good voice for it, Rafi.
Have you ever considered yourself lost in this world? Do you wonder who you
I would buy the audiobook before. I would buy the audiobook before I would the PDF.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it come in pamphlet form so I can go door to door and proselytize like a Mormon?
I like that guy.
New Unlimited does not have a Kindle. No, neither do. Well, I had a Kindle, but the screen cracked. I instead I now read it all on the mobile phone. I have a mobile phone app for Kindle, which is useful. Okay, where were we? Now that Rafi is making tea. Are you making tea, Rafi?
Sorry?
Are you making tea?
No, do you want one though?
I'd love a cup of tea.
I think I've probably got enough in the kettle.
Thank you.
Milk? We don't need milk.
Do you have any milk?
No.
I would have a black.
You don't want tea then?
No, black tea.
Okay.
Or maybe so no, not black tea. Make a tea that isn't black, without milk. Oolong tea. You have oolong tea? You have what tea do we have?
We've got. We got a raspberry tea.
Okay, I want raspberry tea.
Okay.
Yes, I like raspberry.
Hold on, we don't have raspberry tea.
I'm kind of sad that I missed the most informative part of this talk.
Oh.
That sounds.
You can always watch. Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
It sounds Chinesey.
Yeah, and you haven't watched Firefly?
No. No, I've watched some Firefly. I was introduced to Firefly by my girlfriend. Yes. But where were we? Okay. Back on topic while tea is being made. What were we doing? Yes, Sean. We wanted to know why you identify as beta.
I'm not sure I can anymore since I'm not a Nazi.
What does that mean?
It means I don't like the question I'm redirecting.
Okay. Redirect. Okay,
I don't know.
who else can we point out here?
I mean, like, this is the kind of question I'm not really sure how to answer.
I don't think beaters like this question.
It seems strange to kind of answer a question where I know there's a degree of qualifications under which you identify, but being as how, as far as I know, everyone here who I actually recognize is familiar with those, it seems strange to recite things that people already know. Yeah. I don't see the point.
Okay. There are a few people here who are rather new to sociology. So, New Unlimited is rather new. Natalie seems rather new.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, thank you very much. I like that. I really like that smell. It's. Nice. What are we doing? Oh yes. Okay. So we don't have to answer the question. Don't want to. But yes, we were just Okay, Karina, would you like to answer the question about why you identify as a Quadra that you think you are?
Well, okay, I'm not very good at separating people through Quadras, even though I know it's pretty much one of the most important parts of socionics, but why identify with Gamma? I don't identify with any other Quadra, except possibly the other TE Quadras. But, God, I don't even know how to classify Gamma, really.
Okay. That's fine.
In, like, an intelligible way.
That makes sense. It may be difficult for those who, well, it can sometimes be difficult to actually split up the exact qualities of what makes Gamma Gamma.
Yeah,
I often find, what are you saying, sorry?
You have the TE values, which is what I most identify with. TE and SE, I guess. Which, I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
Yes, I actually, it may be interesting to... It may be known that gammas may have the most difficulty describing what gamma is because they'd have to describe gamma in an alpha theory, which may be most counterintuitive for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What are you eating? Sausage rolls. They look tasty. Were they rolled up in the freezer? Were they rolled up in the freezer?
Yes, it might from home.
Oh, nothing. What was I saying?
It's usually off the plant, so I'm famished.
No, that's fine. Don't worry. Yeah, I've already had pasta today. Okay, right. Is there anything else people want to discuss about Quadra? Anything at all? Mostly because I've been keeping the hangout going for an hour and 51 minutes, and I've been given tea. And when I'm given tea, my mind tends to go because I like tea. So, does anyone else want to talk about Quadras, or has anything in particular want to discuss about Quadras? If not, is there any other topic we can maybe discuss?
I will have to watch the video before I ask questions.
Okay. Are there
I haven't been here.
What is Karina, sorry?
I said I haven't been here to see what's already been discussed. So.
Okay. Makes sense. Is there any other topic in socionics that people would like to discuss?
I could attempt to answer your question now.
Okay.
But I'm not certain to what degree it's going to fall in line with the conventional view here. I tend to, I suppose, since I've always known that L valuing is very clear for me, after assimilating each of the various principles, and then there's XX group, and then each group together, boom, this is what you get. And then having that as a way of logically breaking down or identifying what each examples of a specific thing, I learned to, I guess, I've seen some people say they type off of a gut feeling, and for me, I guess it is similar to that, but it's more, I recognize each of the 4 quadras as a distinct archetype, and each of the 4 types within that quadra as a distinct starting point or an imbalance compared to the rest of it. So you have, say, your duals are on opposing poles of that imbalance. If you have a compass where the quadra in the middle is the perfect balance, you would have one set of duals on the west and east, and another set on the north and south. And part of how duality is going to work is that it brings them back to that balance center. And so within that, I recognize that I identify with the beta archetype more so than any of the others. Gamma being the closest possible one, but I would find that absurd to say that I value R at all. And in more recent, I guess, months, technically over a year, but not to say years, I would find that I've been growing towards the other pole within this model. So that would be why I would go with that.
Okay. It's interesting also essentially your approach to sociology is one of, essentially you've got the yin and the yang, as it were, the two opposing opposites. And that by bringing them together you create the whole.
It is a spiritual thing for me, yes.
So that does seem to tie in very much with, it ties in also with introverted intuition, perhaps. There's some sort of teleological end to the pairing of opposites.
Highly religious.
Yeah. And that's interesting. It's often, as I was explaining earlier, how often we can find that in certain religious movements, there's the idea that it's often created as beta movements. So looking at how the Bible's originally done, it does fit in very well with beta. Islam at the moment does fit in very well with beta, and some of the other religions, as they've grown older, have changed to other quadras. But often you find that the quadra that creates new religious movements is often beta. So maybe that's also the idea of almost a religious approach to sociologics could also be very fit in with the beta quadra.
Can I ask why the Bible is beta? In brief.
Okay, specifically because it's got very clear rules and systems on how to conduct one's life. There's the idea of a long-term purpose that people have to get together in order to achieve.
Then I would disagree with you.
Okay.
It's got some set rules, but a lot of it is so vague, it has to be up to interpretation. The oral law, which is Jewish, has very set rules and very set ways of doing it. The Bible itself is exceedingly vague in how you're meant to live your life. It gives you a variety of parables of different characters who all live very, very different lives.
So you're saying there's lots of different stories and the narrative that develops over time.
Yeah, and basically not very set. There's no set rules at all, and it actually clearly shows that the rules change depending on your situation.
So you're saying that actually the Bible is actually far more situational.
Yeah.
And would you say that the definition of what is necessarily good or bad is something that an individual does? Is it an individual's approach to ethics, or is it more of a communal approach?
Definitely situational, but it seems to be. I mean, it's mostly commentaries that say this was done because it was good and this was done because it was evil. But the few specifications is that it was wrong at the time, and it's clear that that's kind of like for the greater intelligence, let's call it, has ideas on it. Whilst humans are very often unaware, even though they may communally think they're doing the right thing, they're usually unaware, and that's why they made the mistakes. Like, for example, the two sons that went into the Holy of Holies and got burnt alive, they kind of thought that was what they needed to do. Was it Korah who was swallowed by the earth? He thought he was doing the right thing. And it kind of shows that people are exceedingly flawed when it comes to their idea of what's good and bad. But the thing is, what's good and bad does change situationally. So you get a lot of sympathy for the characters, if you think about it, that did the wrong thing because they were thinking they were doing the right thing at the wrong time. Because so many previous characters have done the same actions in similar situations, which the difference has made it sort of universally good or bad, whilst they think they're doing good.
Okay.
So I disagree.
So no, so you're saying that the individual may think they're doing good, but actually there's a universal sense of what's good and what bad.
But it's situational.
It's situational. So there's a universal situational sense of what's good and bad.
I'm not saying that your idea of religion being beta is wrong, because I would agree. There is an idea of set rules, but the Bible itself, I disagree with.
But how would you say that ties into the idea of the Ten Commandments, for instance, whereas a clear sense of the rules that were given? And they seem to be quite clearly and unambiguously given.
The Ten Commandments.
Well, so again, these are exceedingly vague.
How does how are the Ten Commandments exceedingly vague?
Okay. I am the Lord your God, so no other.
Mm-hmm.
Straightforward.
Yes.
How do you serve him? How are you meant to serve? It doesn't tell you how you're meant to serve, so it's up to your judgment what's the right way to serve and what's the wrong way to serve.
Mm-hmm.
You shall serve no other. Fair enough, but where's the lines there? I mean, are you allowed to pretend to serve another in order to survive? Let's see, what's the other one? You may not murder. Fine. What constitutes murder? Is murder the same as corporal punishment? Right?
Yes.
You cannot murder. Does that mean you can beat somebody up?
Mm-hmm.
Honor thy mother and father. Again, the same question as God. What constitutes honor? Although it gives you a term, like terms, which is like, this is what you should do, the language it gives is actually lacking in detail.
Okay.
So where you say there's very set structures, I would say no. There's very flimsy foundations.
Okay. In other words, it's actually not very well put together.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not going to argue with God. I'm just saying that.
Because we can't debate that the rules were definitely given out. We can't say they're basic guidelines that were with the intent that in each situation you should apply common sense. Rather, these are rules that if you break, there is a certain amount of punishment to them.
But that's another thing. It never shows. It never.
True.
It doesn't tell you what the punishment is.
Yeah. Exactly. It's almost as if one's given out. These are the commands, say, that I've given. I haven't really gone into the exact theoretical aspects of.
Also, my Hebrew is very rusty.
Okay.
But it's not commandments. The term actually isn't commandments.
Okay.
I think the term is similar to covenants, which is rather
an agreement, a contract.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
If you wish to be a Jew, then you should follow these rules.
Okay.
I don't think it's actually commandments. So we translate it as commandments, which is a very, I hope no one gets offended by me saying this, a very Christian idea of following it.
Okay.
And later rabbinic teachings, but however they were always considered like a bris.
Mm-hmm.
Bris, translated as covenant. And they're the words of God, and therefore infallible. However, it does mean. However, it doesn't tell you what you do if you don't get them. All it does say is, if you wish to be a good person,
yes,
these are the instructions you must follow, and it's clearly specified that only the Jews have to follow this.
Yes.
If you're not Jewish, you can be a good person without following these guidelines.
Well, they have the Noahide laws instead.
They don't have Noahide laws. Noahide laws are simply not to rip the flesh from a living animal.
Yes.
Set up your own courts of justice. What it's basically saying is run yourselves efficiently.
Are you saying actually about people running efficiently rather
yes.
than... So we're saying they're not laws, but more guidelines.
Exactly. But I didn't want to say just guidelines. I wanted to give you why it's just guidelines, rather than just saying it's guidelines. Because just saying it's guidelines sounds so flimsy.
Why is saying guidelines is something flimsy?
Because if I didn't show you the evidence of why it's just guidelines, you would understand why.
Okay. Well, nevertheless, they are called laws.
They are translated into laws.
Okay. Why are they translated into laws?
Because people like laws.
Okay, so in other words, people who handle the Bible may have imposed a sort of beta aspect onto it.
Well, we say this. But we have the evidence that we have of biblical Israel
Yes.
is that the laws were exceedingly situational.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were very varied. There were different laws and customs for each tribe,
Yeah.
different laws and customs for each city, which I think puts your idea of religion as a whole being a beta wrong.
Oh no, I'm not saying religion as a whole is beta.
You say it starts off as beta.
I say it often starts off beta.
And I disagree with you. I say it starts off vague, and it starts off as nomadic. You talk?
I'm not sure who's talking. People can interrupt whenever they want.
Then I have actually a lot of thoughts on this. What he is describing when he says that the terms of the agreement would vary situationally. There's actually within the Christian community, the theory is called dispensationalism, which is that God relates to different people at different times in history. And the one of the hinging points upon that debate is of those covenants, which I think most people recognize the wording as the Testament, Old and New Testament. As far as I understand, the prevailing opinion within the Christian community is that anything that was written or contained within the Torah, as far as the laws that are concerned, became null and void at the point of the crucifixion, and that new covenant was put into place, and that would be why they don't adhere to anything that was in there just because it's in there. I'm losing my train of thought. Can actually remember what all was being discussed, but
Yes, so you're saying that so there's a point where it's said to be null and void, but these are the rules that were set out, and we can now render these rules null and void and find a different way.
And one of the things I think that also, when you bring up the 10 Commandments and how there's no specifics, I don't remember off the top of my head the exact time frame, but that was a part of the larger set of rules that was issued to the people at that time, and that did provide an obnoxiously long degree of specifics throughout the course of the next couple books, I think.
Yes. Sorry.
Good.
Yes and no. The majority of the instructions given were actually in the building of the temporary structure called the Mishkan, which the Torah itself says is void after they left the desert because it was a traveling temple. So there were lots of rules and given, but they were specifically for the building, maintenance, and ceremonies that would go on within this basically traveling temple. Sorry, I'm boring Ethan. And
No.
Oh, he's got it all there. INTP. What was I going to say? Right. To which I would say, yes, there are rules. However, these rules are clearly specified as being situational.
Correct. And some of them it's easy to identify as not being of a moral standpoint, but the fact is, in the historical context, you have a people who just left 400 years of slavery, and now, all of a sudden, we're on our own. How are we going to have a society structured? And so I wouldn't assume automatically that any of those laws that are listed there were meant to be a moral statement, or even how their God would be worshipped. Rather, well, gotta have something, have at it.
So that's actually so basically just what you're saying is that in the Bible you say that the rules actually meant to be as a form of guidelines as opposed to absolute rules. However, it's interesting you say that almost in their interpretation, almost in their translation to English, they've been called the commandments. They've been called the Noahide laws. The idea that it's actually it's almost as if like a situational phenomenon, so a set of guidelines which one could interpret as being related to extroverted logic rather than introverted logic, has been interpreted as an introverted logic construct. So in other words, a set of rules as opposed to situational guidelines where you apply your common sense. So,
because people can't be trusted with common sense.
yes, and that is about maybe when spreading the maybe even be actually when spreading the actual religion around, because beta is often considered to be the Quadras, where the idea of spreading messages towards other people, the idea of a movement carrying forwards and having other people join in with the movement.
Hallelujah.
Like in that particular process, it could very well make sense that what may have been initially been either delta or gamma, more likely gamma, the way you described it, could have been converted into beta in the idea of a spreading movement. And yeah, what I find very interesting is the idea that different religions almost have different quadra values associated with them.
Before we go into this, can I quickly step in?
Yeah.
This is one of my issues with your typing situation, that you act on limited knowledge.
Yes.
Which is, at the beginning you were saying, the Bible is beta. We've just had a whole discussion now in which 10 minutes, 15 minutes,
yes,
we've completely changed your decision. But the fact is that, you're spreading your gospel of socionics to your many viewers, well, 9, and you say these things, and then the people in power is a dangerous position. So people go, yes, and it kind of becomes that thing we were talking about before. They look for the things that fit in to that. They go, yes, I can see how it's beta. Yes, I see exactly that terminology there, and the way they do that, and people sort of move into that. And that's one of the dangers, of course, which is you'll only look for the bits that fit, and that's why you need me, essentially, Jack, to tell you when you're wrong.
Well, I just need someone who has better knowledge on particular subjects.
But, I wasn't necessarily meaning me. I'm just saying that this is the problem, and I think the fact is that people do just go ahead. So what I'm basically saying, people of WSS Google Hangout, is don't be afraid. If you have something that you want to say or a complaint you wish to make to Jack Aaron, speak out. Because only you can make the difference.
Well, Rafi, I think you missed what Jack's original point was, which is that often religions seem to start with a beta construct and shift into something else like gamma or delta. I don't see how we've disproved this in any way.
I got that. But I understood what Jack was saying, Rita. What I'm saying is, if we're to take the Bible as the beginning of the religion, Jack's wording. Jack's wording was the Bible was beta. My argument was that if the Bible was the start of the religion, because you need, let's say, hypothetically, any religion, you need something to group people together, and you have a text that says, here's the rules.
Yes.
Whether it's God-given, whether it's person-given, you need something to base your rules upon. And what I'm saying is that the start of it, we don't know how the religion itself starts, but the basis of it is beta. And I thought that was the important point to make. I understood your point that religions might be beta, and I agree with you. Yes. In a lot of circumstances, I think it is. It's people come along with rules and ideas. However, I was saying with the particular case of the Bible, it's quite possible that it wouldn't be if that was the start of the religion. It was a correction on the Bible, and I'm sorry if that didn't come across.
Yes. Okay. Although then again, from my experience of reading bits of the Bible, it does seem to the idea of it saying that this particular thing is a bad thing, that particular thing is a bad thing, and it does seem to at least create some sort of rules here and there. Oh, I don't know.
I don't.
I don't particularly identify.
Then again, your experience of reading the Bible is a lot greater than mine because I'm not nearly as religious as you are.
I wouldn't class myself as religious. I just think I've read it more than you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yes.
Oh, I've not got. You know what? The only book I haven't got here, my Old Testament's upstairs.
You haven't got your Testament upstairs.
But I do have. Yeah. I've got a Quran. I've got a New Testament. I've got loads of stuff on Islam. Any of that you want? I've got to say, I need to get around to
I've had someone tell me that the Quran isn't a very fun read.
It isn't.
Which is fun. I was actually curious to read it, but someone told me it's not fun to read.
I've not got around to it. None of these books are fun to read. Like, the translation...
No, I do occasionally find the Bible fun to read.
But they translate it to make it sound like Shakespearean. If you
Yes, exactly. I like it Shakespearean. But there's another interesting thing. Shakespeare's writings often seem to be beta. Because the idea is very, very dramatic. The idea that it leads to something in the long run. The idea that often putting aside day-to-day pleasure for something that's more important, that's quite lofty or quite intense. It's the idea that the Bible is translated in a way into English that can be said to be Shakespearean. The idea that it's deliberately translated in a way that's almost beta. And even reading it, it does sound quite intense, quite emphatic, and imploring people to get together and pray together in some way. That
that would be the translation.
I see. So you're saying that the literal about how it was originally written and the original way it was actually meant was not necessarily beta.
I mean, I studied quite a bit of it in Hebrew, and I gotta say the Hebrew is even more vague than the English because the words have so many different meanings.
Yes.
That you're not sure if they're talking about a goat or a type of herb.
Okay, but then again, is that necessarily the idea of the actual Quadras those who wrote it, or is it simply either the way that the language is constructed? Because it's found that what the language that one speaks does shape how one perceives reality.
Definitely. Well, we know, for example, the Russians have an easier time distinguishing the color blue from another color blue because they've got a different word for light blue and dark blue. English people had a massive problem with the color red, which is why we've got red kites and robin redbreasts, which are all orange. Because the colour orange didn't come until oranges were brought to the country, and they go, that's a much better.
Yes.
What is it? A lot of people have trouble distinguishing between green and blue when they don't have the ability to talk about turquoise and teal.
Yes.
And in between, because there's a lot of overlap. Yeah.
So yes, that's maybe one issue that people may be limited by because the idea with a more archaic language like ancient Hebrew, there are fewer words to describe things. As a result, there are fewer things that one can actually distinguish from them apart. As a result, the vagueness may automatically creep in, despite there may very well have been a beta sentiment behind it.
I would then say my argument against that is that if the language therefore is vague, you would try as hard as heck. I didn't want to insult anyone there by saying,
heck's meant to be the softened form.
Yeah, that's why I didn't use the hardened form.
Okay, there we go.
I didn't say go. I'm too polite.
Yes.
What type does that make me? Oh fudge. Yes. So if you got a if you want to set it out as rules,
yes,
and you've got a very vague language, then you would try very hard to make sure that your point came across as well as possible. And through the reading of the text, you don't get that.
Okay.
You don't understand my point, do you?
I think I fell asleep in my head for a second there, then I suddenly remembered.
You're saying
yes,
that because it's a more archaic form, we may not understand what they meant.
Yes.
Right?
But nothing. Also, yes, I remember. Also, the fact that you are not a native speaker of Hebrew, and that you and may not have to understand, it may be that your interpretation of the Hebrew may also be limited, in that because you're not used to the conventional understandings of particular words, rather what they can literally be translated into. That may, as cause you to perceive as vague what other people may perceive as obvious.
True, but I didn't just pick up a dictionary and try and read it. I was learning it with people who spoke biblical Hebrew conversationally, which was weird.
Okay. Well, once it's used conversationally and casually, then it does create a certain sense of mores in terms of how it's actually used.
Yeah.
Oh, then again, it's very unlikely that's going to be exactly the same as the conventional mores of those used in ancient.
Definitely.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that if you have a vague language,
yes,
you will try a lot more to get your point across.
Yes.
Whilst even reading the English translation, there's so much variation in what it could mean.
Yes.
And let's go back to our original point. Situationally, there is such a difference that there seems to be very few guidelines on what is right and what is wrong, unless you are forced to use some common sense, which a lot of common sense and a lot of reading between the lines and a lot of guessing, a lot of commentary, which a lot of Judaism relies on. In fact, we basically run our lives by expanded commentary on the oral law, which isn't the Bible, it's commentary on the Bible, and it's side notes.
Now, what I find interesting about the oral law is that's going more towards Judaism. Essentially, the Talmud is thought to be more of a Jewish approach to the Torah. And essentially, one can often say that Judaism is largely thought to be an alpha of religion, in that its approach to a good idea is looking at Jewish culture, for instance, where there's a combination of two halves, both the aspect of divine law, the idea that one studies a set of rules or frameworks, and then it comes up with multiple interpretations and discussion on that. The idea that it becomes more of a theoretical exercise, the idea of approaching what is essentially to be the laws of how one should live one's life. At the same time, there's also the idea that celebrations and communal activities are conducted in a day-to-day sense, usually over food.
So basically what we're doing now.
Yeah, and that fits in very well with the Alpha Quadrant. And that's what I was trying to explain also, the idea that different religions over time have taken the Bible and actually found their own particular approach of doing it in line with certain quality values. So in a way, I say that the creation of Talmud is an alphaization of the Bible. Oh, I see that Rowan's popped up. Hey, Rowan, how you doing?
I'm in an airport right now.
Okay.
I have about 40 minutes before my next flight.
Okay, so you got some time to kill.
Let's backtrack. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay. Okay, Rowan, basically we were talking about, let me catch up what was going on. We were talking about socionics, covering different quadras. Then Rafi came in the room, and we were discussing, first of all, scientific skepticism of socionics. And now we've managed to get into religion, and essentially the quadras and how they fit in with religion. And we were discussing some biblical concepts. So yeah, that's what happened so far.
It sounds really fun.
Okay.
Surprised by it.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's just wrong. There's a tendency
What's that?
for people. No. Raph was saying it was commenting slightly ironically that you sound excited by it, but I'm just commenting back that ILIs specifically are unlikely to show enthusiasm just for the sake of showing enthusiasm.
ILIs.
There's an idea that they are very sparing in the emotional expressions they give off. Yes. You did, but that's the one that you hated because it looked like a forlorn, ugly doll. That was like the first one one of the first ones you tried to do, and we scrapped that one because it's not quite right.
Oh yeah, was that the female one?
There's the female one in the dress that looks like a haunted doll.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah,
we redraw that one.
Yeah, we need to redraw that one. Yeah.
I didn't like that one. You basically what you did is you showed me a picture of someone and said draw them. And I did.
But no, you didn't draw them quite right. They look a lot nicer than the drawing.
It wasn't a good photo.
I'm sure it wasn't a good photo, but yes.
I drew the photo. We didn't like the photo.
No, I'd say actually thinking about it, if we are going to draw for the male ILI, with Rowan's permission, I'd love to use his photo as the basis.
Can I see a little photo of him?
Yes.
Wait, do you want to do what?
Beard and frizzy hair?
The beard and the frizzy hair. That's Rowan.
I could do that.
Yeah.
What are you? What do you want to do? What? I don't understand what this project is. What are you drawing?
Okay. For the website we're creating, and also the book I'm trying to write, we're going to have illustrations. I want to do illustrations of different types. So I wanted certain. Sorry.
You're saying based on facial features.
Well, not really based on
what
facial
is the
features,
basis of these illustrations?
Well, it's not so much about the facial features, so much as the manner, or the activities they're doing, and the particular but it's more of a holistic manner, as a particular example rather than a definitive set of how they actually are all meant to be.
Danger, of course, is that people will type themselves based on how they want to look.
Oh, that's true.
What type of book is this? This is like you're trying to write an introductory book and include these illustrations. That's probably not what I would do, but okay, I understand what you're. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and you understand my views on VI.
Yes, exactly. I'm also anti-VI. It's more.
I know what you're saying.
That brings it to life.
What I'm pointing out is that you're not necessarily putting it in the right resource. But I don't know. I don't know what your real plan is. Like, I haven't heard about any drawing, so whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
He wants to control the world.
Everyone keeps just saying that. No, No, I was saying in this. Have you ever heard of horrible histories?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm trying to write an introduction to socionics, and it's done in a way similar to horrible histories, where there are regular illustrations that help to bring the concepts to life. So what I kind of wanted to do was to have these illustrations of people who are of a particular type, so that it helps to bring it to life. So you can get a feel for what I'm trying to describe.
You include the picture.
Yes, it's not the intention of leading to visual identification.
Well, so this has been tried before, right? Filatova does this in her. So Filatova has this large set of photographs, which she uses for essentially exactly this purpose. And of course, even if you asked her, she would probably agree that some of those are not typed correctly.
Yes.
She has a somewhat stringent methodology for how she chooses the types of these people, and gets rid of a lot of the ones that aren't sure. But to me, that methodology is not at all, because it's basically based on her hearsay. I'm not particularly driven to methodology at all. But in any case, it sounds very. I don't know if it's just. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do. I don't know if that is really a necessary tool or not in the context of writing an introductory book.
True. It's something. The illustration something makes it easier on the eyes. It makes it something where you enjoy reading the book because you feel as if the illustration brings it to life. It doesn't really contribute in terms of lexical explanatory power. But for instance, when I was reading horrible histories, the fact that there were drawings made it fun.
How could it come?
I'm writing the book in Alpha and I know a guy who can draw, so...
Can kind of draw.
Yeah. You draw well.
Thank you.
Did you remember when we did EIE? I was so pleased with the EIE drawing.
Which one was that?
Except
That was the one with the Shakespearean beard and the...
the Eighth Doctor.
Yes, it looks a bit like the Eighth Doctor, with the frills and the laces only with Shakespeare's beard.
Yes.
Yes, I love that one. It's a good drawing. When I tell you a kind of idea of a personality, you just intuitively put together something.
You are my muse.
Yes, I give you a gestalt. You turn it into aesthetic.
You bring the artist out of it.
Oh, thank you. Do you want me to go pose so you can paint me?
Naked.
Oh, yes.
Lounging on the sofa.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay with you guys, of course, right?
Might not be so good on YouTube. I think it may be March for obscenity.
Oh, this is going straight to YouTube?
This is being uploaded live onto YouTube, yes.
And saved?
Yes.
So all my ranting is going on YouTube? Oh, wow, thanks for that.
Sorry about that.
You didn't tell me this before. I would have had a script. I would have sounded a lot more intelligent.
I can make it unlisted if you want. In private.
Whatever.
Or I'll just I'll edit out the last, I don't know, the time we were here.
I didn't say anything too stupid, did I?
No, you didn't say anything too stupid. I don't think anyone hates you. Does anyone hate this person?
I'm open to the possibility, but not particularly.
Okay.
Fair, nice and brutally honest.
Yes, what was I saying? Rowan, do you have now? I know that now Rowan is someone who, out of all the sociologists I know, He is one who advocated the importance of quadras for understanding and diagnosing socionics type. Ron, is there anything that you would like to say or contribute to the discussion on quadras?
Idea what you've talked about quadras yet. I agree with your summary is very accurate. I played more important than probably anyone else that I'm aware of, including Peter, very slightly. Peter and I are very much on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Hello?
Unannounced? Yeah. Okay. I didn't hear all of that, but that was an announcement relevant to my flight. I'm not really sure what he said, though.
Oh, okay. Where are you flying to, Rowan?
I'm flying to Boston, where I live. I was in St. Louis for a graduate school interview at Washington University of St. Louis for the PhD program in neurosciences, and now I'm in an airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, due to really bad routing on this return flight.
I see. Did it go well?
Yeah, it went fine.
Okay, good. So yes. So as I said, as Rowan said, that quadras are very, very important. So what did you say?
I'll say some things if you would like to hear me say some things.
Yes, I would like to hear you say some things.
I don't know what kinds of things. Like, what have you already talked about? I don't know. Like, that's like you're asking basically explain socionics to me. Which the questions explain socionics and explain quadras are the same question, and it's a very large, broad question. It's helpful to narrow it down.
You're as vague as the Bible.
Okay, let me say what we've already discussed. So we've already discussed the differences. I've explained the serious quadra and the so serious versus merry and judicious and decisive. I've also briefly forayed into aristocratic and democratic. However, what I'd like to get from you, Rowan, are your personal insights into quadra and how you think that and what aspects of quadra you find are defining of types that fall into quadra.
Okay, I heard the first half of what you said. And then you said, I'd like to hear from you is... I didn't hear it.
Okay. Rowan has taken on a woman's voice. Okay.
That announcement is not relevant to my flight, sorry.
Okay, now I was interested in your personal insights into quadra, and what you feel are the defining hallmarks of quadras, and how the types fall under these quadras, these defining aspects of them.
Well, the way that I see it, there are broadly pervasive quadra themes that extend to all of the characteristics of the type that are basically arise out of combinations of valued elements. Each quadra has two valued dyads, and these dyads combine to create ego functions. So, for instance, in gamma, the axes that are valued combine to create harsh judgment, which is introverted ethics and extroverted sensorics, and this somewhat more difficult theme, which I call independence, which is the conjunction of extroverted logic and introverted intuition. And each of the quadras has two such themes, which are broadly expressed in all members of the quadra, but the different members of the quadra express them to different degrees. Some of them emphasize one theme more than the other, and this is not something that is specific to each type. Each type sort of has a sub-expression of quadra messages, which is not specific to, which can be amorphous across the different representatives of the type. amorphous across different representatives of the quadra. For instance, you could have an EII that values self-sufficiency, even though SLI canonically is the type that most clearly shows self-sufficiency, but you could have EIIs that show self-sufficiency even to a greater extent than good faith judgment, and so on.
I see.
And so basically there's...
Hello?
Hello? Sorry, I don't know if like maybe my stuff is cutting out and you can't hear most of what I'm saying.
We can hear most of it, but some occasionally you just cut out before.
Well, I was finished talking.
Okay.
I said a bunch of things about
you
quadra.
cut out, we just finished talking. Okay. Yes, so basic characteristics of the quadras that they all share, but the types almost like sub characteristics which have which usually represented more in each type. Each particular characteristic is represented more in each type within the quadras. Martin wants to know, can Rowan list the dyad themes for each of the quadras?
I didn't hear the question.
Can Rowan list the dyad themes for each of the quadras?
Yes, I can list them. In alpha, there is something that I haven't really named in alpha, but I call it abstract structure, which is a lot less defined than the other one, positive emotionality, infinity, and ideological conflict. And engagement. And I describe what those themes in somewhat
Okay, Ron, you're cutting out quite a bit. Okay, so what I can glean from alpha, you said, was abstract structure and positive emotionality. So that's for alpha, yes? What did you say it was for beta? Rowan?
He just dropped.
Dropped.
Dang it. I think he said ideological conflict, which I think linked up to beta pragmatist. At least I could see LSI being very much about ideological conflict. Rowan? Rowan, did you say that ideological conflict was for beta pragmatist?
No, it's it is the conjunction of those elements, but it's not specific to just the beta STs.
Okay.
Very often the beta N will also show ideological conflict.
Yes.
That's the point of the quadra themes. That in principle, so when I think about quadras, and this has come up, I think, when we were talking about various things, usually I divide the quadras into the extrovert and introvert pairs and the club pairs, and very, very rarely the dual pairs. There's not much use to doing that most of the time. And it's usually, to be honest, the introvert-extrovert pairs that tend to express the quadra themes more clearly slanted to one or the other. As in, for instance, in gamma, harsh judgment is something that is more, it's sort of centered around FI, and in the extroverts sort of express independence and impatience more than the introverts. And these could be thought of as a flaw in the themes. You could probably conceptualize the themes in the opposite direction as well. I don't know, there's no structural reason for it, that's just the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, okay, so you covered the dyads for alpha. What would you say the dyads were for beta?
So it's ideological conflict and passionate energizability. And of course, just buzzwords, right? I explain what all of these buzzwords mean in somewhat philosophical context on my site.
Gotcha. What did you say were dyads for gamma? harsh judgment, and independence.
Say again.
So you say that for gamma it was harsh judgment and independence?
Independent, yes.
Okay. And what were those for delta again? Definitely got those.
It's self-sufficiency and good faith judgment.
Okay. Yes, that ties into what I mentioned before about the ESI's approach and the EII's approach. That one is more about giving the benefit of a doubt, where the other one was more about quickly summing up if a person is good or bad and judging accordingly. Okay.
Yes.
Now, okay, so you also said how divide up into the extroverted and introverted pairs. You can see different versions of his dyads expressed to greater or lesser extents. So, would you say that for positive emotionality, would you say that that's something that's expressed more by ILEs and ESEs?
Yes.
And the abstract structure is more expressed by SEIs and LIIs.
Yes.
So, and you say that it's more so positive emotionality for SEIs and LIIs than it is for ESEs and SEIs.
You're saying, I think you got those terms mixed up, but what you're saying is, I agree with it. I think that it's very subtle and it's difficult to make generalizations about it. So, you can conceptualize it instead in terms of the clubs, right? And that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense for alpha. It doesn't make as much sense for gamma, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. As I said, there's no structural real reason why I say this. It's just sort of a thing that I observed. I think it applies to alpha. You can see what I'm saying. It makes sense for alpha, but the other thing also makes sense. In gamma, I don't think that's as true. In delta, it's a little bit more complicated because the purest expression of those themes, if you will. And not either of the extroverts. So I don't know. It's not structured.
Okay, but yeah, as you guys can notice, whereas Rowan doesn't have the same need as I do to, once he finds an observation, find the rule of a structure we can apply across the entire system. Instead, he notices this observation here may be completely different in another quadrant. The need for consistency across the structure isn't maintained by Rowan in the same way that it's done for me, and that shows a different approach to the theory. Rowan's more gamma approach and my more alpha approach.
As a courtesy to others with
Right. I've got to go to the loo and blow my nose. I've been curious to see if a conversation starts up with my absence. And maybe that you'll be sitting in silence for the next 2 minutes. We shall see. If you do find something in silence, you may fire questions at Rowan or at Raffi and see what happens. Anyway, I'll be gone for a couple of minutes.
Okay. My flight is starting momentarily, so I will leave. But I guess I could put questions within the next 1 minute. If anyone has questions, I don't know. I don't know why, I don't really know what this talk has been about. Yeah, go.
You have a PhD in what?
I don't have a PhD. I'm applying to PhD programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. What school?
What school? There are several schools. I did not apply to only one school.
No, I mean, where have you gotten your degrees from at all?
I went undergrad at Brown University. I double majored I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. No, sorry, I have a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science. Yeah.
Have a nice flight.
I have no professional... Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yes, I don't have any spontaneous questions. So have a good flight.
Sean, you look like you're falling asleep.
Hmm?
You look like you're falling asleep. No?
I have a headache. That's all.
But it's okay over there in Little Shaman. Oh.
So none of you guys have anything to say when Jack leaves the room?
Wait, sorry? Go again?
So none of you guys have anything to say when Jack leaves the room?
Basically. He tends to keep the group together, unfortunately. But what are you studying?
This isn't
Philosophy?
helping. This doesn't help my idea that it's a cult.
Yeah. What are you studying? Philosophy?
What's a cult? What was going on? What did I miss?
Nothing.
Oh, nothing.
What are you telling everyone this is a cult?
Absolutely nothing.
You want to see a real cult? Check out Podlair.
Like, no one was saying anything, Jack.
Really?
It was like silence.
Podlair
No!
is pretty
They
amazing.
can't survive without you.
That's just what I said. I told people that World Socionics Society would not survive without me. They didn't believe me. They thought I was arrogant.
Because you're trying to straddle the quadra, Jack.
Hmm?
You're trying to straddle the quadra.
Yes, I'm trying to straddle the quadras. It's not working very well. It's why the betas resent me.
Yeah, that's why businesses tend to stay a bit smaller or go all gamma. And just hammer people.
Yeah, but the gammas, when I get them involved, it gets so disagreeable. Rome disagrees with everything I try to do.
That's pretty good for you.
No, it's possible. Yeah, maybe, I suppose. Way. Yeah, but if we go by Rowan's process, we cut out all the art, and you'd be out of your job.
I don't mind. I didn't particularly feel that connected to it.
I like the art. They're such good drawings.
You just use them. Do what they do for that phone book of marital relations. They have the options of looking at the picture at the back if they want.
Ooh. But I like the idea of it, little drawings springing off the page when you're reading it.
I think that would be nice. I think that would be a lot nicer than just like factual information after factual.
Yeah, I don't want to be too dry. I don't want to be like a tome, because then people won't buy it.
You want to get people interested, not like make them like struggle to read a book.
You could convert the drawings into Magic Eye, so that people could ignore them unless they want to delve into them.
Magic Eye?
I've never been able to work out Magic Eyes.
What was Magic Eyes?
You kind of look at it from like the side or something, and you're going to see a picture.
Oh, I see. Like little, it's angled in a way.
Yeah.
So when you come from a certain angle, all of a sudden the picture comes together, but otherwise it's just blank.
These ones are a little different. You change your focus.
Yeah.
And it seems to bring part of the drawing out.
That's so cool.
So like those holographic card things, or?
Right. I can already see the pricing of this book. jumping up by quite a bit, but that is a
Do
cool
black
idea
and white.
nevertheless. Yeah, so you can get like the version. What we could do is like 16 versions of this book for each particular. No, I'm not going to do that. No. I mean, I mean, in the future, maybe I may have a beta version, the gamma version, the delta version, but not 16 versions. I have maybe because one of the things I want to do in terms of applications at some point with the right research applied is once I find a good way of actually conducting the research to prove empirically that that applications of the theory can actually work in a way that's beneficial, I would recommend the idea, for instance, in education, having 4 classes, one for each quadra, so that students of a particular quadra learn from teachers of the same quadra. Now, following that principle, it would make sense for there to be 4 versions of the Introduction to Socionics book I'm trying to write. In which case, I may write one, and eventually commission a beta, a gamma, and a delta to write the other 3 versions. And that way, it would the information would be conveyed in a way that is beneficial to someone of every single type and every single quadra.
However, if it's an introduction book, they don't know which quadra they're in, and therefore they'll have to buy all 4 books to find one that suits them.
That's true.
So you'll have to charge them that 20 quid.
So maybe what we do then, instead of having 4 separate books, we have like 4 books in one volume.
Maybe.
Yeah.
One of those find your own story books.
Yes. Yes, a bit like that. It's like you find your story.
If you think this introduction works for you, turn to page 25.
Yes.
If you think you're a mage, turn to this page. This is going on YouTube.
You should try that. Yes.
Dude.
What's wrong with going on YouTube?
Tell me this.
Rafu, I think you've come across as perfectly sober and perfectly intellectual, and just a charming chap in general.
Ugh.
Apart from maybe your hairiness.
You're just a charming chap in
general. Oh no! You made me tea. As a result, you're in everyone's good books.
Immortalized on YouTube as tea maker.
The provider of tea is always presented in the good way, unless
the holy provider of tea.
Unless they poison you. If they don't poison you and they provide tea, it's a good thing.
That is my lot in life. I thank you for this opportunity, O Master Jack.
No, Rafi's just playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag now.
Yes, I am.
It's a really good looking game. I publicly endorse this game. I haven't played it yet, but it looks really good.
I'm also paying attention.
Is that the newest one, or like the one that came out before, like the
Assassin's Creed Black Flag? I don't know what version it is.
Whatever one I got on Steam.
Whichever one you got on Steam.
Good enough.
Yes.
Yeah, they look really good. They're like old like Paris or something like that.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'm playing that one at the moment.
What was that, Martin?
I'm actually playing that game at the moment. Well, not right now, but currently, yeah.
How would we analyze it in terms of quadra?
Well,
how would you
like puzzles and violence and stealth? This is for you.
Okay. From those observations, how can we systemize it in socionics?
It's difficult gameplay, but it's not impossible.
What would we say? What quadra would you say that Assassin's Creed Black Flag might be? For those who have played it. I haven't played it, so I can't really contribute here.
I don't know. A lot of it seems to be about going from selfishness and greed towards a greater purpose.
Yeah, you'd accept that.
Yeah.
So would you say maybe beta or gamma?
It's definitely not judicious.
Not judicious, no.
So,
I think that one of the major parts of it is definitely extroverted sensation. There's definitely a lot of fighting to do what's important.
You say that, I'm just taking over this ship for the hell of it. Plus, they tried to kill my crew. So they're gonna die.
Okay, there's that. Okay, it's a vengeance against those who are bad. So yeah, I say definitely either beta or gamma. I'm not sure exactly which of the two. how we split it apart, how we approach between beta and gamma. If we know it's decisive, well, how can we tell it apart?
Is there anything to do with controls? I mean, it's got very simplistic controls which you have to use. So it's like instead of pressing lots of different buttons, it's only a few buttons, but you've got to do them well. I don't know if that helps you.
That's in game design.
Simple in design, okay. So that's in other words, it's easy access for all, I imagine.
Even for a dyspraxic like me.
That's a good question.
Graphics to make it easy for everyone.
What if the Quadra, how is trying to control the actual story or plot, were different to the Quadra applied for the actual game mechanic?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. What does this What do simple controls have to do with the content of the game? Other than it's just it doesn't really.
Exactly, they're two separate things. But we could feasibly look at the look at the Socionics in both, in parallel.
Yeah.
Okay, so you say it's simple, easy to use. We say it's comfortable to use as well. Like it's not. We say it's a difficult game.
Well, I mean, my clicking finger has become exceedingly stronger since I started playing it.
Okay, so a lot of clicking. It says it's not very comfortable to play. Then you have to.
Oh no, it's definitely comfortable. I'm just saying that I've noticed a significant improvement.
Okay. Well, from what I know of the series, not necessarily that game, but before it would be something about going into the DNA and looking into past scenarios. You'd have to, I don't know how to describe it.
It's very sci-fi in that way.
Yeah, but
it's the idea of almost past life regression.
Yeah, but through science.
Going back into history to relive a character from the past, and so to get the treasures stored.
Yeah.
The secrets from there.
Yes, I definitely think also the idea of going back in the past, the idea of traveling through time, and there being conflicts throughout time. That also definitely represents decisive for me. I could definitely see it fitting decisive, at least in terms of plot. In terms of plot, it's definitely decisive game. And just
Well, it has the two main separate groups, being the assassins and the Templars. Yeah.
The assassins who try and save the world because they think they know what's best, and the Templars who try and control it.
Yeah, control it.
You're on the side of the assassins usually.
Okay. In which case, that fits into beta because you've got different factions working against each other.
Yeah, I think what this game is. I think what this game is doing is putting the two beta groups in this wider pirate world, which is I think is more gamma.
Okay. Well, why would you say the wider pirate world is gamma?
Because everyone's out to get lots of money, and they don't really. It's not really for any. I don't know.
That sounds right to me, actually. Playing this game right now, that sounds more or less correct.
I see. So So it's essentially like a gamma-like world where the points of meaning and purpose in the game are actually beta.
Yeah.
It may even be. I'd say that people who wrote the plot may have been beta, and they may have projected their perception of gamma onto the rest of the world. Which actually often happens. You often find that when betas they try to describe the other, they often or people who aren't like them, their tendency to go towards another decisive quadrant. They don't quite. It's harder for them to understand non-decisive people, except that they may be lazy or unwilling to fight for anything important. So it may make sense for them to, when describing a threatening way of doing things as opposite to them, they may go towards gamma rather than, say, delta. Because delta rarely does anything that's particularly threatening to anyone.
I found this out to be the case. Often beta authors, they write gamma kind of evil villains and adversaries. The moral heart is in beta are going against gamma, rather than delta, which is often not ignored.
Yes.
Like, there's no real point in
Is it?
delta. They don't do anything. They're not fun.
Hmm.
They're not fun in
Exactly,
kind of
like a beta,
thematic way.
a beta can often try to conflict with Delta, and I find there's no fighting going on. They're just taking it, and that's the idea. That they're so different that they actually don't get into a mutual altercation.
Hmm.
So the most different thing to beta that does get into mutual altercation is often gamma. And that's often the way that, looking at the US, I've noticed in my time in the US, it seems to me that the main conflict between the Democrats and the Republicans seems to be one of beta versus gamma. For the people in positions of power fighting for the long-term outcome of the US, the two quadrants that do this are beta and gamma, and so where they would oppose would be between beta and gamma, as opposed to having the alphas and deltas.
And which one is which?
Yeah.
Democrats would be beta, and Republican would be gamma.
Yeah, I think so. And in general, one can say that the liberal movement is, in a very general sense, it fits in with beta, and the more conservative movement is often more gamma.
Oh, liberal and socialist.
Yes. Well, when I say liberal, I mean tying together a large number of different policies and views that happen to coincide in one's political viewpoints.
Liberal, the most illiberal people there are.
Well, but that's one thing. But some people see liberalism as being quite authoritarian now.
It is.
Which is interesting, and that ties into almost the beta approach that there is a sense of revolution, so casting aside the shackles of the old. But at the same time, there is a tendency of people within the group, within the fold, having there being strict rules on how they're meant to conduct themselves.
Liberalism.
Yeah.
You're either liberal or you're a fascist. And if you don't agree with what we consider liberal, it's not liberal. Sorry, I don't like very, very leftist people. I find them silly. This is going on YouTube, Jack.
This is going on YouTube. But the big thing is, Rafi, you know this is going on YouTube, so when you say things in front of the camera while it's on YouTube...
I forget, I'm playing Black Flag, I'm not thinking. I'm happily in this kind of world of pretending I'm a pyro. It's good fun.
Yes, there is a tendency to get in disputes over ideology with beta. So if you don't agree with our ideologies, our principles, then we may fight you on those, because the introverted logic is blocked with the extroverted sensation. So as a result, you can often find that there's often an authoritarian side to liberal side. That's me, because that's how it goes together as a quadrant.
Oh, they're so cute.
Whereas Republicans, there's that same aggressiveness, but it's aggressiveness over different things. Rather than being so much ideological, it's they more fight over what they see as good people and bad people, as individuals. And an interesting example, I'd say, is that Christopher Hitchens started out as left-wing, but he also in response to the way that the liberal side was run in the more beta way, he gravitated more towards the right wing, more towards Republicans, and his approach seems to be very much like how, well, he himself wasn't quite American there, but he was British, but his approach seems to represent a lot of Republican sentiment, where there's lots of polemics and attacks on individuals in terms of their moral character. At the same time, there's this aspect of the American dream, the idea of how America first started out, which Rowan referred to as this independence. The idea that if you use your own individual efforts and you work hard at something, you can amass wealth for yourself. Which is something which is more held on to in Republicans than it is in liberals now. Democrats. Although the interesting thing is that the policies of these two parties have changed dramatically over time, as I've been educated on by my girlfriend's family.
think they were the other way round at the start, weren't they? Completely.
What was that?
They were completely the other way round.
Yes. It was actually the Republicans who opposed slavery.
The Republicans.
And not Democrats. Democrats were actually quite pro-slavery. It's only later that it's but now the Democrats have taken on the idea of essentially being defending the rights of minorities.
But to be clear on this, you realize that these are different people, right?
Yes,
I mean, the parties have changed places in the sense that the parts of the country that were previously Republican are now Democrat. They just kind of rest around.
It's comparable to the cells that make up the human body. We replace them, all the different cells that make us up over the course of our lifetime several times. We still give ourselves the same name. So that's interesting. It's that the concept of the party is a dynamic, changing thing. It's not really as set as it would like us to believe.
Unless it
Well,
does
I think
the
in America,
Constitution.
What's a revolution?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm curious,
in America,
though,
we
see... Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, in
just
America,
wondering-
we haven't had... Go ahead, Al. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
Oh, I'm trying to take us on a pretty wide tangent, so you might want to finish your point.
Oh no, I've
That's
finished.
my point again. I think I was just going to say that in America we haven't had a new political party in like 150 years that has come to prominence. So the two parties have had to just take on the new coalitions that would form. I think it's different in other countries. But, see where Al wants to go.
I'm looking at the clash between beta and gamma over points of maybe SE and NI, and I'm wondering if you see that alpha and delta clash in the same way. If you feel that they clash over, say, SI and NE.
That's a good question.
Like
I think
in the entertainment industry or something of that sort.
I think. Yeah, exactly. How do non-clashing quadras clash? That's a good question. I think it's a lot more subtle. I think it's more subtle than what you'd expect with beta and gamma. However, I'm not sure because you don't really hear about it that much. I can't really point to many examples of said clash of twin alphas and deltas. I can think of at least a takeover by Delta being in Disney. I know that Disney started off as being very alpha. Even now, Disneyland is still alpha. I think it's going back towards alpha. But we went through the period as the Disney Renaissance where it became very delta. Especially in how its villains were portrayed as being almost... All the villains were quintessentially beta and all the heroes are quintessentially delta. And I'm interested to know exactly how that came about. Whether there was some sort of infighting or there was some sort of clash of some description that led to this change in the messages being given by Disney. So I can't point to any exact examples, but I would be interested in finding some. I might be interested in looking into the history of Disney, for instance, as a possible indicator of an example.
Perhaps the actual death of Walter Disney and whoever took over the mandate after him or the franchise, the brand.
Yes, it could be whoever stepped into the position after Disney was a Delta, and the idea is that they didn't quite they didn't fight to take it over from him. I doubt there'd be that much sort of fighting. Rather, they just happened to step into the position, and then maybe the Alphas would have gone, "Oh, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to go off and do something else instead." I get the sense that I know I always found that Don Bluth's films have felt very, very Delta to me. So it might have been that maybe the Delta Alpha divide may have happened before Disney died. Maybe maybe a point when Don Bluth separated from Disney. I mean, I don't know the actual history. My factual knowledge is rather poor on this. I'm not sure if that's necessarily factually accurate or not.
Right.
So maybe that's the case. Right. I know that vocally, my voice is running out. I feel I'm getting a bit tired. But is there anything else that we're interested in discussing before we draw the hangout to a close? Nothing at all? Okay.
This might be a good ending point, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for those who stuck through to the end. Well, I see Andrea seems to be gone. Martin, well, I can't even see Mark, so I have no idea if he's still sitting there or not. Scott's still watching, and Alon's a picture. So, excellent. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you had a good hangout. It was certainly interesting. Had its highs, had its lows, specifically when I went to the loo, and I think it was. I think we should do this more often, certainly. Speak soon, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Jack.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeff.